This meeting will come to order. Today is Tuesday, December 13th, 2016. This is the voting meeting of the Prescott City Council. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any introductions?
No, sir.
Okay. Our invocation today will be given by Pastor Mike Gaston of the Heights Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Lamerson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council, for this invitation. Can I just say before I pray, this is my second Christmas in Prescott, and you have earned the title of Arizona's Christmas City. Thank you for how wonderfully we celebrate this time of year. If I could now, I'd like to ask God's blessing on this gathering. Lord, we thank you for this place where we live. We thank you for the beauty that is your fingerprints, your work. We thank you for the wonderful city that you have blessed and that is the work of many people in this room. We thank you for the pleasure we have to live here, and we thank you that decisions made in this room by these people have added to that joy. Lord, we ask that that would be true again today, that wisdom would reign here, that there would be great peace, there would be great satisfaction as decisions are made for the good of the people. And Lord, we thank you most of all for these folks who serve. May they serve well and wisely, and may you bless their efforts. I pray this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Obert.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lamerson.
Here.
Councilman Blair.
Here.
Councilman Lazell.
Here.
Councilwoman Orr.
Here.
Councilman Shiska.
Here.
Councilwoman Wilcox.
Here.
All present.
City Manager, do you have any announcements?
Just a brief one, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank the staff that works so diligently making things so festive in here. It's Patty Krause from the Recreation Services, James Gamboa from Finance, Teresa Ogle from Public Works, Liz Bowen from Human Resources, Leslie Gracer in Water Resources, and Michelle Rush in our office. Just thank them and wish them a happy holiday.
Thank you, City Manager. Want to say welcome everybody, and thanks for coming in today. We've got a full house, so it looks like we've got some issues that people they're near and dear to their hearts possibly, so we'll see how that all comes out. We'll go ahead and start with our presentations.
Chamber of Commerce, introduction of new businesses.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Neil Sneller, and I'm the Membership Director for the Prescott Chamber. Everyone is invited to attend our next mixer, which is this Thursday, the 15th, at Bloom Tree Realty downtown, so we'll have a great view looking back at the courthouse. The event begins at 5, and you can visit our website, prescott.org, for more information. The 34th Annual Christmas Parade and 62nd Annual Courthouse Lighting attracted thousands of people. Thank you to everyone who participated and helped make both events wildly successful. Like it was said earlier, we truly are Arizona's Christmas City. Our 2016 membership and business guide is now available, or 2017, getting used to saying that. Our business guide is available, just hot off the press. You can stop downtown at our visitor center to pick one up. And I am proud to introduce a local business owner and new chamber member, Mile High Property Inspection. The business was founded in 2013 and offers superior customer service. Here to tell you more about his business is the owner and founder, Haley.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I'm Haley Sisson. My parents moved here, I believe we moved here in 1971, and they built their home in what was then the Equestrian Estates, right in front of Granite Mountain. At the time, you couldn't see another home, so they'd sure be surprised to see how it looks now. Between Prescott and Mesa, I've spent about 40 years with another 15 on the East Coast, and my background is transportation, about 20 years in the lumber industry, about 5 in propane. I am a certified home inspector through the Arizona Board of Technical Registration since 2008, and I opened Mile High Property Inspections here in Prescott in 2013. I am a member of INTERNASCI, the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors, as well as the American Society of home inspectors, and I am now a Prescott Chamber member. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and we wish you luck.
Merry Christmas to all of you.
You bet. Same to you. Next item.
Item B, Prescott Airport Passenger Survey, presented by students of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
Mayor, members of City Council, good afternoon. The staff has been responding to council and constituents' requests to determine passenger service demands in and out of Prescott Airport for quite some time. So through the grace of Embry-Riddle, the #1 aeronautical university in the United States, Dr. Aaron Bowen, who's the department chairman of Behavioral and Safety Services, created a student project this semester for students to actually solicit for a passenger survey. And these students will be providing this presentation to you as part of their final semester grade. So it will weigh heavy on their final. But I want to introduce Dr. Aaron Bowen, who is actually the collaborator of this, and she worked very closely with Mayor Oberg in regards to preparing the actual questionnaire. She presented to us the actual responses in advance, and we're very proud to provide this report to the City Council for their consideration. So, Dr. Bowen.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everyone. And we've got copies of the questionnaire as well as the report and a copy of the presentation that the students will be delivering today. I'm only going to speak for just a moment. I'd really like to turn it over to my students so you can see what they've done. But as John mentioned, I am the department chair for Behavioral and Safety Sciences, as well as the director of our Robertson Safety Institute at Embry-Riddle. And so we're very heavily involved in bringing together psychology, workplace behavior, consumer perceptions, and the aviation industry. And so I'd first like to introduce you to Mr. Lucas Mackey, who's a senior in Aviation Business Administration, to introduce this project to you.
Hello, City Council members. Today, myself as well as a couple other Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University students are going to present on our findings for the Passenger Airport Survey. So as you just met, Dr. Aaron Bowen is our faculty advisor. My name is Lucas Mackey. We have Evan Hardy, Alex Sung, Madeline Kuhn, Duran Delgadillo, Monica Gomez, Crystal Mega, and Ketty Robley, also involved with this project. So the mission for this project was actually to determine the consumer demand and the characteristics that people living in the Prescott area, where they want to fly to and what exactly will make them fly from Prescott Airport. We found that total travel time, flight reliability, as well as availability of preferred destinations, such as the destinations on the West Coast and the Northwest, are what passengers in the Prescott area really rely on. And so for the methodology of the survey, we administered the survey in two different parts. One distribution method was actually online at PrescottAirportSurvey.com. That's where we received a majority of our responses. The second was through ballot boxes and using hard copy versions. And the ballot boxes were distributed in Chino Valley, Prescott Valley, as well as Prescott area. And overall, we surveyed around 766 people in the Prescott area. And so now I'm going to pass it on to Duran to talk about airline preference, aircraft type, as well as destination preference.
I think you were also looking at the Quad Cities area for the survey, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Lucas. So I'm going to discuss the results of our survey. So the first thing we asked, as you guys can see, is to see whether or not people would be comfortable with flying on a propeller aircraft out of Prescott rather than drive to Phoenix to get on a jet aircraft. And what we found that 31% were indifferent and 35% strongly disagreed with going to Phoenix to take a jet aircraft. So what that told us is that, we can have a propeller aircraft out of Prescott, and that's likely all we can have. Going to travel aspects, so we wanted to figure out what would actually get people to fly out of Prescott, what factors, aspects, amenities that they wanted. So we asked them, assuming prices are roughly equal, which concerns would be most important to you in deciding to fly from Prescott Airport rather than another airport, and total travel time, availability of preferred flight times, and on-time arrival of my flight, which includes reliability, no cancellations, no delays. Those are the top three options by far. And then we had an other category. Among the options in the other category, convenience was the top one with 33 responses. And convenience just means the overall ease of getting from Prescott Airport to your final destination. And the reason we excluded cost was because we assumed that cost was the biggest factor in deciding to fly anywhere for any reason. And to include cost as a factor would only tell us what we already knew. And we were aided in excluding cost ultimately from other similar surveys that did include costs and had really some thrown off data. So next was the regional destination preference. So we broke up the U.S. into 8 regions and then included a 9th international option. We divided the country by population density, with each region having about 3 to 4 major airports. And as you'll see, we divided California. The reason we divided it is because LA and San Francisco have 2 totally different market demands, and we want to be able to gauge those different market demands. And splitting California allowed us to distinguish those. So from the results of asking people which regions they're most likely to fly to, the West region was by far the most popular, with Northwest coming in at almost half of that. Knowing the general areas is important because it allows the airport leverage to market to airlines centered in that region to offer direct flights. It also allows us to determine travel patterns of passengers. For final destination city preferences, where people are actually going, Los Angeles was by far the most popular, again with Phoenix and Denver coming in 2nd and 3rd. And this will, hopefully allow us to get some kind of direct route between those cities if it's possible. And then, so overall, California destinations accounted for 27% of final destination preferences. Northeastern was 9%, and Northwestern, so, Seattle, Oregon, Idaho, except San Francisco, excluding that area, accounted for 7%. The one thing we did notice was that Orange County received a majority of the other responses. And this could be that some people would rather fly into an Orange County airport rather than LA, but they chose LA because it just happens to be the closest. And so this is something we feel that needs to be investigated further to decide if there is a demand for Orange County. And then for connection city preferences, we're trying to determine which airport people use the most in a layover. As you'll see, Denver was the first, with Phoenix, Dallas, and 2nd and 3rd, and then LA at 18%. One reason LA is so low is because a lot of people are using it as a final destination instead of a connection city. And then also another reason, LAX is a very big airport and can be very hard and time consuming to navigate, especially if you have such a short layover. And then a third reason is because since 17% of people answered that they're flying east, not everyone wants to fly west to go east. It's that concept of backtracking that people like to try to avoid. And that's all I have for our results. I'm going to turn it over to Monica, and she's going to discuss the demographics.
Alrighty. Sorry. Thank you, Duran. Good afternoon, Council. So to determine the demographics of the survey, we asked several questions. And one of the questions was determining whether the individuals from the Quad City area flew for business or for pleasure. Now, upon analyzing the data, we found that 74% of the individuals flew for pleasure, while 26% flew for business. Now, with technology advancing, rather than businesses spending their assets to send their employees to meetings, they're relying more heavily on telecommunication software such as Skype or FaceTime, whatever it may be, in order to save on air travel costs. Therefore, we can say that the individuals flying for business will not only remain constant, but it will decrease over time. Most importantly, the individuals from the Quad City area are flying primarily for leisure. And another question that we asked was determining their occupational status. And upon analyzing the data, roughly 67% of the individuals in the Quad City community have some form of employment, whether it is full-time, part-time, or self-employed. Now get this, 0.9% of the individuals in the Quad City community have no form of employment. Therefore, this high number of employed individuals indicates that they're receiving some form of consistent income, thus enabling them to actually afford travel costs. And if you turn to the page for the next demographics section, we asked for their ages, and we found some interesting results in regards to their ages and number of flights taken per year. We found that 21% of the respondents were between the ages of 18 and 27, while 10% of the respondents were between the ages of 65 and older. Now, within the age group of 18 and 27, 1 in 6 individuals take more than 20 flights a year. And looking at the respondents who indicated they were college students, 51% of these students actually take more than 5 flights a year. Overall, over 98% of the individuals who took the survey, regardless of their age, fly on average at least once a year. Therefore, the high number of individuals who are traveling, especially within the younger demographic age range, indicates that expanding air service at Prescott Airport could actually be successful. And now I'm going to hand it over to Crystal, who's going to give you the list of recommendations.
Hi. So, what does all this mean, right? We're giving you a lot of numbers and a lot of information, but ultimately we wanted to make some recommendations to help increase the utilization of Prescott Airport. So the first recommendation we made was to provide service to Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Denver. These were the top 3 final destinations and also 3 of the top 4 connecting cities. So by utilizing these 3, you'll have the maximum efficiency possible. Next, we recommend that there is an emphasis placed on total travel time and on-time arrival, which was discussed earlier as also known as reliability. So to reduce total travel time, we have a couple proposals, I guess you would say. First, to evaluate airlines with codeshare agreements. The codeshare agreement would allow them to have a larger selection of final destinations, as well as continue through at their connecting airport without having to recheck baggage or go through security again. The best option for this is if someone could have a codeshare with American Airlines, because if you looked at the utilization, that was the biggest one that does have codeshare agreements available, as well as their presence in Phoenix would provide a huge assistance for you. Also, we encourage to look into the possibility of jet service, because obviously jets most of the time are faster than propeller aircraft, and that will reduce the total travel time for the passengers. For the on-time arrival aspect, there should be an increased availability of reserve aircraft and pilots. A lot of the comments we got were, my flight was canceled because the pilot hurt himself or called in sick or the aircraft was broken. So if we're able to increase that reserve, people are going to be more trusting of the service. Which leads me to my next point, address perceptions of reliability and similar concerns among traveling public. Currently, I think it was about 2/3 of people were uncomfortable with utilizing the service because they had previously missed a connection due to a canceled flight, etc. So the majority do not mind flying on a propeller-driven aircraft, which is 71% said they don't mind it, but that does mean that about 1 in 3 people are driving down to Phoenix because they're uncomfortable with the aircraft stationed at Prescott. Most of the residents here in Yavapai County fly with Southwest and American Airlines to the west and northwest regions, which you can go back and look at those maps, is also heavily reflected in our recommendations for Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Denver. And lastly, to increase passenger service, there should be a focus on reducing the total time of travel, increased reliability of service, increased availability of preferred flight times, and increased availability of final destinations. Once all of the aforementioned recommendations are addressed, we do believe that there will be an increase in passenger volume and the demand is present in Yavapai County. At this time, we'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to do this research and open the floor to questions.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Embry-Riddle, Dr. Bowen, and the students. They all had a chance to brief me out at the airport, and they all did an excellent job, and they're very enthusiastic about having done this study. Is there any questions, comments from the council?
Just very nicely done and presented. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, I can tell you the council appreciates this information, and we'll be using it. And I know we have Great Lake Airlines here today to listen to this report, and we'll be moving on further with this later on in the voting session. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And we're going to pull 2 of them. D and H would be pulled for now for further discussion.
Consent agenda. Item A, approval of minutes for the city council meetings held on November 8th and November 15th, 2016. Item B, adoption of resolution number 4360-1569, approving an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Phoenix for access to the Phoenix Business Intelligence System for tracking taxable activity in Prescott. Item C, approval to purchase a Sharp network digital color copier using state contract pricing in the amount of $10,031.57. Item D, adoption of resolution number 4362-1571, setting the structured sober living home license application fee. Item E, approval of a license agreement with the Prescott Chamber of Commerce for the use of parking spaces located directly south of the Chamber of Commerce building at 117 West Goodwin. Item F, award of city contract for the purchase of radio read large water meters from Badger Meter in amount not to exceed $29,595.15. Item G, award of city contract to Metering Services Incorporated to provide meter testing and repair services for water meters 3 inch and larger in the amount of $30,000. Item H, approval of amendment number 2 to city contract number 2012-063A2 with Mountain Bike America LLC, doing business as Epic Rides LLC, for the 2017 through 2019 Whiskey Off-Road Mountain Bike events. Item I, approval of city contract with American Management Association for customer service training in an amount not to exceed $22,000. Item J, approval of city contract with Host Compliance LLC for a comprehensive code enforcement and vacation rental services in the amount of $41,450. Item K, adoption of resolution number 4369-1578, approving a joint use agreement with Yavapai Community College District for emergency use of Grace Sparks Activity Center. Item L, adoption of resolution number 4367-1576, authorizing amendment number 3 to the IGA with the Yavapai County and Community College District specifying rental conditions of the College Performance Arts Center. Item N, adoption of ordinance number 5020-1558, an ordinance of the Mayor and Council of the City of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, reinstituting the Field and Facility Services Department in the City Code by adding a new chapter to Title II, Chapter 2-13, Section 2-13-1, and item N, adoption of resolution number 4365-1574 regarding contracts with City Council members and city employees for fiscal year 2017.
Do you have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve consent agenda items A through N, excluding item D and item H.
Second.
You have a motion and a second vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Item D.
Item D is the adoption of resolution setting the structured sober living home license application fee.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mayor. Michael, I just had some concerns with whether or not this is enough of a fee to charge based on when we went through all the structured living ad hoc committee meetings. Inspections came up a lot, and just seems like $400 for a health safety inspection.
Do you want me to handle
it? Is that enough? That's my only concern.
I believe it is. I think staff did a pretty thorough analysis of trying to recover its cost, but since I wasn't here for some of the discussion, I'll defer to Mark to discuss it a little more.
Sure, thank you. Looking at the agenda memo, to come up with these costs, the $150, we talked to code enforcement about their time to review these applications and legal. Code enforcement feels we're going to spend about 2 hours on each application, and legal 1 hour. We used average rates to come up with $150. Now, the other fees that you referred to, the health safety and the building permit, those were all adopted a long time ago when those fees were looked at. The only fee we're looking at today is $150. So the first year it'll be $635 license fee, and subsequent years will be $485.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that, because the application is quite extensive, but you think 2 hours is...
That's what code enforcement felt
and
and legal when we met with them.
Yeah, we went to the folks that actually implemented Mike and the like, and I think he felt pretty comfortable that the timeline was reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. In conjunction with the questions that Billy asked, are the homes subject to an annual inspection to ensure that they're keeping up with the life, health, safety issues necessary to run places of business that are delivering health care in the city?
Yes, sir, they are.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Do I have a motion on this item?
I make a motion to approve item D that was pulled from the consent agenda.
Second.
Yeah, motion, second vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Yeah, item H.
I had that pulled from the consent agenda, and the reason was very simple. When we originally started a number of years ago, can't remember exactly how many, but it's been at least 10, maybe 12, the concept was that we were going to provide seed money for a privately owned, privately managed, privately beneficial enterprise to come into the city and establish a opportunity for the, not only for the privately owned stuff, but for the city to have a signature event to continue. However, the seed money was supposed to stop. And it seems to me as though we've been back every year to readdress this. And I don't think we gave it adequate discussion during the process of whenever we were discussing it, just to slip it through on a consent agenda item without a little bit more further. And Mr. Lamar, you know, this is the time frame in history when we can get the point across to Epic Rides that, you know, this was never intended to be a continual source of revenue for a private enterprise. I mean, this is not a 501c3 or any sort of a benefit to a nonprofit. This is a profitable venture. And we don't typically subsidize year after year after year privately owned businesses in the city of Prescott.
I think everything you're saying, Councilman Lemerson, is reasonable. The reason it was on consent is I had made the assumption, or staff had, that you were comfortable with this since it had been done for 13 or 14 years before. But if the idea was initially seed money to garner a landmark event, and now you feel as if the event is here and the money is no longer necessary in terms of a subsidy, I think that's a reasonable discussion and something we should have.
Well, and I do too. And I mean, there's other activities that take place in the city that money was intended on seed money, not necessarily as entitlement money, and it was to get things started and going and on their feet. But once they're there, I don't necessarily think that the citizens of Prescott should be financially obligated every year to continue subsidizing private enterprise.
I think that's totally reasonable. This is not a not-for-profit pursuit. This is a for-profit pursuit.
Yeah, say that one more time.
This is not a not-for-profit pursuit. This is, was that like a Peter Piper picked?
Easy for you
Yeah,
to say.
you got it.
This is a for-profit pursuit.
Sounded like a lawyer on that.
Thank you. So that's why I had it pulled. I thought my fellow council ought to at least hear some of the history. This at some point was intended not to be a continual thing that the city council paid for or provided money for private enterprise, but it was to get it started, and then it was supposed to stand on its own 2 feet.
Councilman Lozelle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I got a question. I don't know if it's for Joe or for Mark. In the past, the monies that we've given them, is there a stipulation of how they're spent, or we just give it to the organization?
It's been 10 days since it's been handed to me, so I don't know a lot of the history, but I do know one of the amendments to this contract that we're contemplating right now is decoupling $10,000 of the contribution so that it can be equally distributed throughout the event, whereas before it was defined as for contributing to the purse money for the prize winners.
Okay, so from your understanding, in the past, that was purse money for the awards of the winners of the competition.
Yeah, I've got the contract in front of me, and I
Can you
can
make
answer
it
the question.
brief?
Define brief. There was an annual base fee of $20,000 to offset expenses, and then there was a gradual increase in money used for
payout for the winners. In 2012, it was $5,000. In 2013, it was $7,500, and in 2014, it was $10,000. And this contract has an automatic renewal, so there's always going to be a 3-year contract in place. But we're stopped at the $10,000 for the prize money and the $20,000 for the offset of the expenses.
Okay, and my other question is, has it been, last year, we gave as a city $10,000, right? No, we gave more.
No, we gave 30. The subsidy's been the 20 and the 10. It's just a change in the 10, allowing it to be used for things other than the purse.
Okay, so the 30 with a 10,000 decouple, which is the prize money.
Still a total of 30,000.
30,000. I thought for some reason in my head we were giving them 10 grand, not 30,000. Okay. Was the first year 30,000? Do you know that?
Go ahead.
It would have been $25,000 because it was $20,000 to offset expenses plus $5,000 for the purse, and that purse increased in 13 to $7,500, then to $10,000 in 14, and that's where it's staying at this point because there's not another escalator built into the original contract.
And I didn't see on my, and maybe I just missed it, which is very well likely. Where are these monies coming from? From the bed tax?
Money comes from the bed tax, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Blair?
Joe, if you wouldn't mind, out of that 30,000, are we giving them on top of that in kind with police, fire, roads shut down, all those kind of things as well?
That's correct, and that's in the contract as well. I think just the services are identified, and you pretty well nailed it. It's police, fire, traffic control. Those things we're providing at no cost in addition.
Do we have a cost on that?
I don't. I would have to look back again. It's been 10 days since it's been given to me. I could look and see historically what that's been. I'm not sure if the police chief might know that portion of it, but I could certainly look into it, Councilman Blair.
I think the point that Jim made is very germane in the fact that I was here when that first started, and it was to elevate this program in a slow time of year in the city of Prescott to bring in housing, in our hotels and be able to provide something that was different to create a signature event. And at the time, council agreed to do that, and at the time we also talked about as their business built, meaning bringing in all the folks that set up stands to sell their wares and getting corporate sponsors and all those kind of things that they've done, that our share would go down. And so I would agree with Jim. I'm not wanting to sit up here and turn the valve off on them today, but I think there should be an aware to Epic Rides that this may not continue after this next budget year, because it is indeed going to private, business and enterprise and not directly to a nonprofit.
And I would like to add from Mayor and Council that we have had discussions and we're trying to position ourselves to build another event in the off-season on the opposite end towards the fall to help position ourselves better down the road. So we put a little bit of thought into it, and we'll certainly work it a little bit more.
Councilwoman Wilcox?
This event is huge for Prescott, huge. And I know it returns a lot of money in terms of sales taxes, draws a lot of visitors. It's fun for the community. Joe, do you have any data, any information on what the return on our investment is?
Councilwoman Wilcox, I know that annually Mr. Sadow comes back and does a presentation for council, and I know that they reached out to ASU and did an economic impact study, and don't quote me on this, but I believe it was a $4 million impact, if I remember correctly. I will say in addition to that, too, that the initial idea, as Councilman Lamerson pointed out, was great because it's done other things for us. It's really put us on the map as far as, an outdoor recreation destination, and it really has done a lot of marketing, I guess, besides the event. So there's been some advantages, but again, time has moved on. We're looking at other ways. We're positioning ourselves for the future, and we hope that that's a part of it, but that remains to be looked at.
Councilman Shiska.
Thank you. Joe, when you say you're positioning yourself for the future, ourselves for the future, does that mean with Epic Rides or with another organization?
Councilman Shiska, it could both. What we would like to see is we noticed that our first of all, outdoor recreation is a shoulder season activity. I mean, April's a shoulder season for us. Those athletes don't mind it if it, well, past experience, it snows sometimes during the event, and that just adds to the allure, actually. So what we're looking at is, can we do something similar to this in November, late October, which typically the weather's pretty good. Building another event like that would help position ourselves down the road, no matter what happens with Epic Rides. So the answer to that question is both.
Okay. A couple more things. I have a problem with discriminating between nonprofits and profits, because ultimately nonprofits have to make a profit in order to continue to be in business. So I'm not sure that there's a delineation there, but I would like to hear from Councilwoman Orr, who's the representative of the Tourism Advisory Committee, on what TAC feels about this and what her feelings are about this.
Yeah, and I was next up. So,
as a matter of fact, she's next. So.
Yeah. There's been a lot of discussion with Joe and the special events and the Tourism Advisory. They certainly want to hold on to this event. This is an important thing for Prescott. At the same time, I don't think we want to put all of our eggs in one basket. And so there has been some talk about, and especially some other seasons, let's do something in the fall as well. So it doesn't, just because you do something in the fall doesn't necessarily mean you do away with what's going on in the spring. But I would just say, Councilman, you did a great job when you set up that $30,000 for the Epic Rides and brought this event to Prescott, because it's been, I think, life-changing. It's brought industry to us that we are known for now. I mean, look at the trail system that we have. And so there's been a lot of benefits to it. I do think it's a good idea that Todd comes in again and makes that presentation about the impact, the $4 million impact to Prescott. And also, he knows, there's been a lot of conversation, he knows that the council is looking at reducing this down the road. I think that's been pretty clear, Joe, in our meetings.
I believe that's been conveyed to Mr. Sadow, yes.
Yeah. So the TAC, I would say, yeah, they definitely want to hold on to this event, because it's really, people not only come for the event itself, but they come prior, because they come and they do the trail system, they do the trial rides that they do. There's a lot that goes on with it, so, we want to hold on to it, but at the same time, we need to be fair to all. So, yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your comments, Billy. That was the point of my pulling this off the consent agenda, so we could have a little bit more deliberation and some public exposure as to what we're really trying to accomplish here. It was never intended to say we're not going to go for the bicycle rides anymore. I never said that. What I did say is that when we originally started this, it was a leap of faith argument that I put forward when we came up with it the first time. Let's go ahead, let's help this guy get this thing built. We're a destination deal. Well, at some point, and I appreciate Gene's comment, your return on investment, that's what you look at when you look at certain things. On the other hand, we have limited resource in the bed tax. And some of the issue was to try and create other activities, not just one or two, but to continue to use the bed tax in a manner that benefits all the businesses that bring people here through tourism, not just filling bedrooms, restaurants, etc., because they're not the only ones that benefit from tourism. Everybody in this community benefits from tourism. And in the initiative that the public passed was for tourism and parks and recreation development. And we need to develop some, and we need to promote some. And you don't cut it off by continuing the same things over and over and over.
That's right.
What you do is you try and expand your base. So.
Well, and one of the other things I would just like to mention, so while we're talking about the Tourism Advisory Committee, they are concerned about our nibbling away with the bed tax, and taking this and taking that, and before you know it, now we don't have a contingency fund left. So we just need to be conscious of that. But I will say I'm sure that they want to have the Epic Ride.
Mr. Mayor, could I make a suggestion? Obviously, you could take it for what it's worth. Instead of locking yourself into a 3-year term, maybe this is something that needs to be reviewed annually. And what you should make a determination today is whether or not you want to proceed with an annual contract.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? couple that I have is, first of all, I've talked to a sponsor, and he indicates we get worldwide participation in this. There's people that have come from New Zealand, France, other places around the world to participate in this event. So it's obviously very, very popular, number one. Second of all, I think it really starts out our tourist season. It's right on, like they've mentioned here, it's right on the shoulder, the early shoulder of the season. And I do know that during the 2 or 3 that I have observed here, that we do have full hotels, and our restaurants are busy, and it seems like there's a real pickup in the atmosphere in town from having this event. So I agree too that we need to watch our bed tax money. We don't have that much of it, as I said in the study session. It's a finite amount of money that we have to work with, so we don't want to be continually going to the well and supporting these events, particularly if they can stand alone. And I think this is one that could stand alone. And if the president sponsor decides he wants to step out, I think we're probably in a position to put this out on RFP. We got plenty of time to try and find another sponsor. Is that correct?
It would be nice, Mayor, if we could build our opposite shoulder, November prior to, something like that. But certainly we could adjust to whatever needed to be adjusted to. We're definitely on the map these days. We're not unknown.
Okay. Again, I agree with some of my counsel here that indicate that, they need to stand alone. Maybe right now, we do support them for a while longer until they have an opportunity to see how they're going to get by without that funding. So I would definitely support this this time around. I'm not going to tube them at this late stage. There was quite a bit of discussion on this, so I'll take a couple comments from the public if anybody wants to comment on this particular issue.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council.
Good afternoon.
My name is Sandra Smith, 701 Whites Bar, Prescott. I think that the suggestion that you go with a one-year contract may be a very good one, and maybe look at decreasing the amount you donate with each of those contracts so that they get used to the idea that there's not going to be that money coming in.
Okay.
Sort of wean them off.
Right. Understand. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize a one-year $30,000 contract with Epic Rides with the possibility of one-year increment contract approvals after that. So it'll be reviewed annually.
Second.
Is that legally sufficient there, Counselor?
It is. I just want to let you know that the way the contract that they're working on now, that it does have a 2-year termination provision. Doesn't mean you can't go and negotiate with them now to amend the current contract for a 1-year contract. Okay. But just know if they're not amenable to doing it, getting out of it may take you a couple of years.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion, second vote, please.
Councilman Lozelle? Mayor Pro Tem Lammers?
I did.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to regular agenda.
Regular agenda item 9A, adoption of resolution number 4366-1575, supporting the continuation of essential air service for Prescott Municipal Airport by Great Lakes Aviation Limited.
Afternoon, Mayor, members of council. The Essential Air Service Program was basically initiated by Congress to assure a minimum level of scheduled air service for smaller communities such as Prescott. Since 1978, the city of Prescott has had numerous relationships with numerous smaller air carriers providing service, including LA, Ontario, Phoenix, and Denver, Page. So there's been quite a bit of different operators in different locations throughout the past 35 years. So recently, the Department of Transportation, the United States Department of Transportation, issued an order requesting proposals for new essential air service. The existing contract that the city of Prescott has, actually the U.S. Department of Transportation has with the local airline, which is Great Lake Airlines, that expires April the 30th, 30th of 2017. So what the Department of Transportation issued a request for proposal for is for an additional 2-year contract that starts May the 1st of 2017 and extends to April the 30th of 2019. And what the Department of Transportation anticipates or expects from the local community is to provide the Department of Transportation a recommendation of who they should enter into an agreement with as far as providing air service under this Essential Air Service program. So the requesting response is due on December the 30th of this year, and that's why we're here to present this to you today. Like I mentioned, Prescott is presently served by 4 daily flights to Los Angeles International Airport, which provides 20 weekly round trips utilizing a Beechcraft 1900. And if you can recall, the Beechcraft 1900 was recently reconfigured to a 9-seat seat configuration, so there's 9 seats being provided for each flight. However, until October, there was only 2 flights a day going to LAX. So just recently, Great Lakes has announced that there's now 4 flights going to LAX from Prescott every day. They have just recently, Great Lakes Airlines just recently announced too that they're actually upgrading their aircraft. So it's no longer going to be a 1900 9-seat configuration, but it'll be upgraded to a larger aircraft, which is a 30-seat configuration with a flight attendant and laboratory in there for 2 of those flights going to LAX from Prescott. The other 2 will still remain with the Beechcraft 1900 service. In addition to that, Great Lakes has recently announced that they're returning their air service twice a week to Denver. Denver International Airport via Farmington. So there's a stop off in Farmington, New Mexico, but there is providing service. They are providing service on a 30-seat Embraer aircraft to Denver starting this Saturday, December the 17th. Of the 2 proposals that the U.S. Department of Transportation did receive, one of them was again from Great Lakes Air. The Great Lakes Airline, as far as the qualifications for essential air service to provide 2 round-trip flights, are on the Embraer 130, I'm sorry, the 120, which is a 30-seat aircraft. However, the additional site to Denver, the flight to Denver through Farmington, is not part of the essential air service. However, that is in the interest of Great Lakes Airlines to partner again with the city of Prescott for increased air service out of Prescott. The other proposal was Boutique Airlines, and they're based out of San Francisco. They offered flights into Phoenix, and they offered flights into Los Angeles International Airport. The largest aircraft that Boutique Airlines has in their fleet is a 9-seat aircraft, and they were offering, again, 2 flights into LA and potentially 2 flights into Phoenix based on what their business model shows. So the recommendation from staff is to make the resolution to present the United States Department of Transportation with a recommendation again to enter into the contract with Great Lakes Airlines based on the available seats that are available, that will be available for the passengers. So in essence, we're going from 2 9-seat configurations, which was a total of 18 seats out of Prescott every day to some 30-seat configurations, which equates to about 78 seats a day that passengers could actually buy tickets for. We do have 3 members of the senior officials from Great Lakes Airlines here. If any of the council members has any direct questions to ask of them, they're certainly here as a sign of support and interest, and they have certainly some greater level of interest in Prescott as a city of focus in the Great Lakes Airlines business model. As far as financial impact, what is the incentive staff recommends to recognize Great Lakes as a partner is right now with the existing number of passenger traffic that the Prescott Airport receives, the FAA federal grants we're only eligible for $150,000. Any airport that has less than 10,000 passenger enplanements throughout a year receives a $150,000 entitlement level. However, once that exceeds 10,000 passengers in any given year, that number of federal grant qualifications, entitlement grant, actually increases to $1 million a year. So it's an $850,000 benefit once the city of Prescott actually exceeds 10,000 enplanements in any given year. There's also some additional residual revenues that can be seen by an increase in car rental services, with potential increase in fuel sales that the city receives a percentage of due to the increased amount of aircraft and the larger aircraft flying in and out of Prescott Airport. There's also some increased sales of the cafe and a lot of other local amenities through the airport. So again, that is the purpose for the staff recommendation, and I'd like to ask if the City Council or Mayor has any questions of myself or the Great Lakes Airlines officials.
Can we get one of the representatives from Great Lakes to come on down in case we have a couple of questions? Thank you. We have a question from Councilman Blair.
I don't know that's so much a question. I appreciate everything Great Lakes has done, and I've used it quite a bit. But my only problem, I'm a small airport guy. I like pulling up at the airport, getting on the plane, and going where I want to go. It's very difficult to fly into LAX to go to a Dodgers game and get to where you want to go. So my recommendation would be on the 9th seat that you would entertain flying into Ontario, one time back and forth, because Ontario is a smaller airport, easier to get around, less congestion when you get to the California hub over there. And that would be my only suggestion, that at some time, if you would look at that, it would be benefit to a lot of people, I'm sure. Thank
Sure.
you.
I'm Chuck Howell, President of Great Lakes. Thanks, Mayor, Councilman. Thank you for your comments. It's definitely something we would consider. As you know, when we first started flying the Prescott, we went into Ontario because LAX, as we say, you had to have a secret decoder ring to get into a big airport like that. And so we started out as an experiment and found out that the experiment worked. And we also found out that there was a lot of ties, as was reported in the Embry-Riddle study. You have a huge tie to the LA basin, as we call it. There's a lot of retirees, family members, and sports fanatics that like to go just to LA area. So we certainly will take that under advisement.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Wilcox.
Thank you for being here. Obviously, we want to try to fill those 30-seaters. So how does Great Lakes let people know when they're making a reservation that it's for a 30-seat plane as opposed to a 9-seat?
Sure. We're working very close with your airport manager. We're going to be launching a fairly aggressive marketing campaign in the next several weeks and into this next year. So be watching for a lot more ads, a lot more advertisement about the 30-seat equipment. And the mayor's heard this joke, but my grandfather used to say, if you're not selling enough watermelons, get a bigger watermelon truck. So in this case, obviously with 9 seats, even though there's days that historically you're not filling up those seats, it adversarially works against. And when you can put out 30 seats, it helps with the airfares as well, because you can sell more discretionary traffic in a market like this when you've got more seats to sell from. Likewise, on the Denver traffic, when we served you to Denver before, you were sharing the airplane, and back then it was in the 19-seat configuration, but because of the stop through Farmington's a large market as well into Denver, they were getting all the seats, and you didn't have access to the seats out of here. With the 30-passenger airplane, takes away a lot of that particular argument. So we feel like that too is going to help increase your enplanements. To John's point, 10,000 enplanements we think is very achievable in 2017. When you talk about adding that many seats, we only have to board about 28 people a day, and we're offering 78 seats. So we're only talking about 50% load factor. So it's a very, very achievable number that I think we as a community and you should also, get excited about of trying to get the word out. Because it is a lottery ticket when you get the 10,000 enplanements for the $1 million airport improvement funding.
Councilman Shiska.
Thanks, Mayor. It's great to have you here, Chuck. when I fly this 30-seat airplane, will I actually be able to hear myself think?
Yes, sir. Actually, the Brasilia is a very quiet and a very fast airplane, so I think you'll enjoy the comfort of it. Plus, it has small overhead storage bins. You'll be totally amazed at the size of the aircraft and the comfort of it.
And are you going to help us market to get to 10,000?
Absolutely. We're working on a marketing plan, and the we is us. Great Lakes has taken the lead on it. And as I've told John, obviously he knows the community. You know the community way better than we do, where the marketing outlets are, whether it be through newspaper, cable channels, billboards, etc.
Have you thought about marketing to far north Phoenix, where it's probably a lot easier in some points to drive up here and park for free than it is to hassle with going down to either Phoenix or Gateway?
Sure. One of my favorite lines is, we can get you there for less than the price of a speeding ticket. So it's a good marketing ploy. The other guerrilla marketing we like to do is hire a roofing contractor out on the interstate with the tailgate open, and that way the police department's reporting flat tires all up and down the interstate. People start flying out of your local airport.
That's right.
John brought up parking. The nice thing that we like to promote too is the fact that long-term, short-term parking is about 10 yards apart. And so it's a great airport. The Embry-Riddle study said as much, that people do prefer to fly out of the local airport. And as part of that long-term commitment as your partner, we've recently added 2 overnight airplanes that are parked here for backup airplanes. In the unlikely event that something does go wrong, we've got airplane. We recently are entering into a lease on a hangar out there to be able to do overnight maintenance. And we've hired 2 full-time mechanics that'll be stationed here full-time to maintain. So as we told the mayor in a study session a couple of months ago, this is one of those where we're going all in on Prescott. We're committed to the long-term growth. We know the traffic is here. We know that we can help you build it.
When Embry-Riddle gave their presentation, they hesitated to relate to price. Is the price that much more, and does value factor into that to a point where we can mitigate the situation with price?
Pricing is a very complex issue. Which in their survey, they mentioned the code-share relationships. We are a code-share partner with United Airlines.
Can you explain code share?
Yes, it's where it looks and smells like the United product, meaning you, the consumer, can go to the United website and you can book Prescott to anywhere in the United route structure. And that will be true over the Denver hub or obviously LAX, because we fly into the same terminal that connects you to United. We also have interline e-ticketing agreements, which is just one step below the code share agreement, meaning that your bags transfer. Talking to Kathy, our station manager today, we do get a lot of American customers out here, and we have the ability to check their bag all the way through. So when you're checking in as a consumer, if you'll let Kathy know, she and her staff are trained typically to ask you, is LA your final destination, or where are you connecting to? And if you're connecting to Delta or American, we have the ability to check your bags all the way through, which is a big plus, especially in an airport like Denver or LA.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Lozelle.
Thank you, Mayor. Chuck, it was just not more any question. I'm not going to tell you how to run your airplane or line. I did fly your airline, and you have some great, spectacular employees. They very friendly, very helpful on this end and on the LA end. So, and as far as the cost, I can't remember what the difference was out of Phoenix to LA, but I know in my mind the convenience of leaving my truck where I know it's going to be safe at this airport, and I get home late at night and I just drive here is well worth that few extra bucks in my mind. So,
thank you, sir.
Councilwoman Orr.
Yes, Chuck, thank you for doing business in Prescott. We appreciate it. Embry-Riddle is going to grow. We all know that. I mean, they have spectacular university. Prescott College, Yavapai College, they all have students that want to go somewhere and be somewhere. And so I think that We were close to 10,000. When was that, John? In 2007?
Yeah, we exceeded it in 2007 with another airline, yes.
Okay. So I think we can get there, and so we're here to help in any
Thank
way
you.
we can. Yeah.
It is all about seats, being able to have the seats to
When
offer.
thank you for the bathroom.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure when Shiska was talking, whether he was talking about as a passenger when he was flying your airplane, or he was volunteering to go out and fly your airplane. I'm just trying to help from an economic standpoint. You might get a volunteer pilot,
We are looking for pilots, so if he's...
Any other questions, comments from the council?
Mayor, it might be good. Chuck, do you mind sharing the price point on your promotional fares to LA, since this is sort of a free?
You put me on the spot. I think it's $97 each way. Does that sound? Yep, Kathy's giving me the thumbs up. $97 each way. It is less than the price of the speeding ticket then.
I can't drive over there.
A 4-hour wait on I-17.
That's right.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
One thing I think you've addressed is the reliability factor. I know in the past when I've talked to people, that was one of their concerns. I know a couple of times when I wanted to fly on it, the day I wanted to leave was a day that a plane was not available. So it sounds like, with your additional plane here, the maintenance factor and everything else, looks like you're going to be able to reduce that considerably. So we all appreciate that. I'd like to open it up to the public right now if anybody has a comment. Could you please, ma'am, could you please come on up to the mic so everybody can hear you? Okay, just give us your name and where you live, please.
Hi, I'm Kim Pisano, and I live at 999 Custer. And my question is, do we have a pilot domiciled here to take the plane if a pilot's sick? The other thing is, what kind of plane is domiciled here? The 9-seater or the 30-seater? The Brasilia or the Beechcraft?
Beechcraft.
So if a 30-seater, the Brasilia, is broken, you won't have enough room if you have a full flight on the Beechcraft. Is that correct?
The way you framed it, yes.
Okay.
9 does not fit into 30.
Well, 30 doesn't fit into 9, right. Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Did you want to respond to that question anymore? Or?
Sure, just briefly, today, because as John pointed out, we've been flying 4 flights in the 1900s. So today, the answer to the audience is yes, we have 1900s as backup. As we move forward, we will probably move a 30-seat in as well. But the 1900 is still a good launch airplane. If nothing else, we can move pilots and parts around kind of as a charter airplane to keep the airplanes moving, not just for the passengers only. So it's kind of a chase airplane, if you may.
Any other public comment? Looks like we have one other person here.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, Sandra Smith, Mayor, Council. As you see, I use an alternative mobility device. Now, I know it won't fit on your 9-passenger. There's no way. Will it fit on the Brasilia? That's a pretty good-sized plane.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought so. Good.
Any other comments?
Mayor, can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
I just want to thank John Cox for all you've done for the airport. I think, and the mayor's focus on it, I think it's just really made a difference for the Prescott Airport, so thank you.
Okay. If there's no further public comment, then do I have a motion?
Yes. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 4366-1575.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, second. Vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone, for that discussion. We'll go on to the next item.
Item B, public hearing and adoption of resolution number 4359-1568 and ordinance number 5012-1550 regarding RZ 16-004 for a proposed change of land use for property located at 903 Green Lane, amending the 2015 general plan land use map from low-medium residential density to mixed use, and amending the zoning from single-family 18 to residential office. Ordinance number 5012-1550, an ordinance of the Mayor and Council of the City of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending the zoning of certain property within the City of Prescott generally located at 903 Green Lane from Single Family 18 zoning district to Residential Office zoning district.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Again, as we always say when I'm here, that ideas for land development starts with pre-application conferences. And we began this project with a pre-application conference where the applicant is requesting to change the zoning for this property shown on your screen. This is Willow Creek Road running north and south on the aerial photograph with Green Lane going east to west on the intersection. The applicant currently has a single-family home on the property which he rents to, I believe, Embry-Riddle College students or other college students. The applicant wants to requesting to change the zoning so that he can add a duplex in the rear portion of the property and convert the primary residence to a duplex itself. So it would be a total of 4 duplexes. 2 duplexes, 4 units. It's a little light on the screen, don't know why. But as you can see, this is Willow Creek Road on the site plan. Green Lane. This would be the primary residence that exists there now converted to a duplex, and a new duplex in the back corner of the lot with the associated parking requirements and entrance out to Green Lane to the signalized intersection with Willow Creek Road. The current zoning is single family 18. Whenever we look at zoning changes, we have to also look at how it is compatible with the general plan and any other type of neighborhood plan. In this particular case, the zoning is single family 18, and the general plan has the zoning as low to medium residential density. So in order to have the zoning change to residential office, which is the least intense commercial district we have, it's a transitional commercial district in neighborhoods. The general plan would also have to be amended to either some sort of commercial or, in this case, requesting the least intense mixed use to allow for the duplexes. We also have, as you know, in this area, a Willow Creek corridor overlay, neighborhood plan. And I know there has been some discussion about what the neighborhood plan says, but in my staff report that you've read, points out with this attachment 5 that the site is located within the hash marked area here where I placed a check mark. And in the legend, you can see for that checked marked area that the Willow Creek Corridor Neighborhood Plan recommended for land use zoning change. So it is mapped in the Willow Creek Plan for a zoning change. So then the next question is, well, which one? What type of zoning change? Right next to my check mark, you'll see the 2 initials there, 1J, letter and a number. Well, 1J corresponds with the document, the overall document for the Willow Creek Plan that I mentioned in my staff report, and it specifically recommends residential office zoning. So in this particular case, the applicant is asking for a rezoning to residential office because it is consistent with the Willow Creek Plan, but then we'll also have to have the general plan amendment. Another question that comes up often with these type of requests is, why isn't the general plan compatible with the zoning now? Why wasn't it done when the recommended zoning for the Willow Creek Plan came through? That's not done at all normally, because the idea of changing zoning is that it be consistent at the time with an actual proposal. The purpose of having a site plan come through with a rezoning application and a general plan amendment, rather than doing it in reverse, have a general plan and a rezoning done first, is that it gives the public a chance to see what is actually being requested with that rezoning and with that general plan amendment. So that's why the process is the way it is today. You have to have a real application for a real project that is first vetted by staff for its practical application but then the public hearing process gives the public the opportunity for our notification process through the newspaper, the posting of the property, and our mailings. With that, I know the applicant is here in the audience, and I know that there is a significant number of public available that wants to speak to this. Because of our notification process, I should mention that for this to pass favorably, staff believes that this would need at least 6 out of 7 votes from the City Council. And I mentioned the statutory requirements in my staff report because of the opposition to the project.
Could you just briefly, verbally say why it needs to be that?
Yes.
Just for the public to understand.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Let me give me a chance to zoom out. Get to this particular section. And get it to be clear. The Prescott City Code, Article 9, Section 915, mirrors the Arizona Revised Statute, Section 9-462, as shown on the screen together. But in the event of a protest against the proposed amendment is made that meets the conditions of the statute that's listed below the paragraph I'm reading now, a public hearing shall be scheduled before the City Council. In the event that such hearing is held, the amendment shall not become effective except by a favorable vote of 3/4 of the City Council. Well, 3/4 of 7 doesn't quite equal 6, but there's no such thing as a quarter of a council person. So it's rounded up to 6. So we need 6. So 6 out of 7 votes would be necessary, specifically because we did, and in your packets, I know you saw it on your online, 60 to 70 opposition letters for this rezoning. Yes, sir.
Any other questions, or you going to have the person come up?
Yes, sir. The applicant.
Mayor, I got a comment.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take Councilman Blair's comment first.
I think before we start hearing from the folks out there, first of all, I was on planning and zoning for 4 years, and this project came through. The next door one did, Santa Fe Springs. From my standpoint, it has other problems. It doesn't bother me so much about duplexes or fourplexes, because there's a corridor plan in place that absolutely dictates that it's in a transition area to have switched over to small business commercial.
Yes, sir.
We went through this hubbub several years ago with Santa Fe Springs and the outroar from the public, and I think they've been good neighbors. The problem that I have with this overall is a simple fact that there's a boulder that sits there on the side of the road in front of Santa Fe Springs, and at the current time there is only one lane there that is right turn, and you can't right turn on a red, and the ingress egress, based upon what I'm seeing on the plan that you have up there, there isn't any stacking at the light, and the question becomes a traffic management situation to me. How do you get people to turn in when you're only allowed 2 stacking cars, and if somebody's going west on Green Lane, they can't even access their own driveway because they don't have the stacking to do so. So I look at it in a different light. I look at it from a zoning standpoint, the fact that the property doesn't warrant where it's located, the amount of traffic that it's going to generate. They may be able to shoehorn enough parking spots in there, but I can see a real problem with traffic. And from my standpoint, looking at whether this project's good for the neighborhood or not, that would be my major concern. And I think it's a real concern, because I think if you're going to mitigate that, you have to take out the boulder and do some traffic control changes with secured left-hand turns and the ability to be able to make right-hand turns to get traffic in and out of there. And it still never addresses the amount of people that will be going west trying to turn into the property, because you're going to have a stacking problem. So that would be my issue going up front before I listen to anybody else.
Thank you. The comments, I will say that through the PAC process and through the vetting of the rezoning process, the Public Works Department, through our traffic engineering, has looked at it, and they are available. Somebody is from, I think Mr. Atterbury from Public Works is here to address traffic concerns and the entrance on Green Lane.
Mayor, Council, my name is Kevin Atterbury. I'm the member of the Traffic Engineering Group at Public Works. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have. I did hear the concern about the ingressing traffic being able to turn left into that site across queuing traffic for eastbound into Willow Creek Road. There is 3 lanes there now. There's one ingress lane onto Green and then a right out and a left out. I think it's a left and through, I believe. But that would be a concern if we saw that there was a high traffic volume in that site, but we consider those units generating about 6 vehicle traffic per day, about 6 traffic trips per day. So if you go from 2 units to 4 units, you're going from 12 to 24 trips per day. That's a 24-hour day. So we don't see that there's enough volume there to have a serious impact on that left turning movement.
I can appreciate that, and thank you. If I may respond, Mary, from my standpoint, it's not only about this piece of property. You have a church that's proposed up on Green Lane and Estrella as well in the near future, and also a subdivision that's not near to being built out. So therefore, you have more generations of traffic to come. So I think not looking at the whole situation as a whole is hindsight.
No, I agree. We typically don't require a traffic study for this small of a development, and the significance between 12 and 24 trips per day did not throw a red flag for us.
Thank you.
Councilman Shiska.
Yes, I'd like to talk to the traffic man again, please. Traffic guy.
I wouldn't get very far.
Traffic guy. Kind of like a weather guy, except you're
Right.
the traffic guy. A constituent came into my store and talked to me about this project, and she said that one of the big problems that the neighborhood is having is that there's probably 6 to 8 cars parked in there in the evenings right now. So
At this unit?
Yes.
Okay.
So was that creating a traffic problem? Have you heard? And is that a situation that you're aware of?
I'm not aware that there's 6 vehicles parked on that parcel. That's not an interest of us really necessarily. But I have received no complaints about people being able to get in and out of that parcel, nor did I look back in the past 5 years on crash studies. I've had only 2 crashes at the intersection, and it has nothing at all related to people being able to get in or out or queuing. Both of those were pedestrians. So I don't see that there is an existing problem, nor this impact would make that worse.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, comments from the council?
Well, I appreciate the 70-plus letters that we got from residents in the area that are concerned about changing their zoning from single-family residence. And I believe they had some very valid points. So I'm open and I'm going to listen, but I just want to say I do appreciate people stepping forward and saying these are our concerns about what this change would do to our neighborhood.
How many comments did we get in opposition and how many for? Did you get a count of that?
I'm sorry, say that again, Mayor.
Can you give us a count of the ones in opposition, comments in opposition or letters, and the ones that were pro?
To be honest, Mayor, I believe I think all of them are in opposition.
Okay.
I think it's 100%.
Councilwoman Wilcox.
Thank you. I think just some basic principle, I'm uncomfortable with our piecemeal approach to continually amending the general plan anytime a specific proposal comes along and asks for it. I think we need to honor the decision made by the voters last August to adopt the general plan. I understand it's intended to be flexible and this is a transitional zone, but we've received a lot of opposition. I'm sure we're going to hear some verbally tonight, and we don't live there. They do, and I respect that.
Any other comments, questions from the council? Any from the public?
No.
Come on down.
I don't know, did the applicant want to speak
Okay, you'll have a chance to come up too. All right, we'll take the first man here. Please give us your name and where you live.
My name is Wes Stanfield, and I live at 909 Green Lane, 2 houses from this. And I delivered to you today the notice that we received as residents for the hearing, which clearly states that this they plan to amend the use plan of the general plan to allow the construction of 4 residential units. In talking to Frank, I realized that residential office is a less intensive use. However, when you combine that and make 4 units in there, that makes it a much more intensive use. Okay? You'll notice that the driveways to this are less than 125 feet from Willow Creek Road, and that proximity makes it for much more traffic and much more hazardous. We are also concerned that should this zoning ever revert back, you've got 4 residential units there. If it reverts, you have the potential to have 5 unrelated people in each residential unit, 20 people. And that would be a welcome mat for a recovery house operation there. And I don't think you want to put out a welcome mat for recovery. So we would like to see this voted down. We would like to see not 4 units in there. Even if it doesn't go recovery, that's almost tantamount to having multifamily housing next door to single-family half-acre housing. Okay. So that lot is a half an acre. It doesn't show the back 10 feet of that lot actually belongs to the lot next door. It was made that way so that the lot next door would meet the half-acre requirement. And that happened because Len Fisher built the house next door, and his parents happened to own the house on the corner. And they said, yeah, we'll give that to you to meet the requirements. So that 10-foot spot back there is not available to those. It belongs next door. We have good neighbors, and we'd like to keep it that way.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to come down and comment?
My name is Frank Hahn. I live at 1343 Gray Eagle. I lived in this neighborhood for a little over 20 years. I was living in this neighborhood when this house came up for sale. It's a single-family home with an attached mother-in-law quarters. It looked like a good rental unit. We've rented it for 20 years. I think it was mentioned earlier that we have predominantly Embry-Riddle students in there. That's who I've got in there now. At least the last 5 or 6 years have always been Embry-Riddle students. When this house came up for sale, like I say, we evaluated, found out that it would work as a rental unit, and it's always been a rental unit since we had it. I originally applied to Planning and Zoning for a 6,000 square foot commercial building with 22 parking spots. Really had almost no remonstrators against that. I think it was mentioned the problem with the right-hand turn on red that people were using. I think that was about the main objection. At any rate, P&Z gave a favorable recommendation for that project. After evaluating some bids that had come in as far as the cost of demoing the house, building the new building in the back, given the current rental market for commercial, the rates and all, we abandoned that project, came back to P&Z with this project, basically to build a double in the back. We had quite a few remonstrators at that meeting as well. But again, we came away from that meeting with a positive recommendation. I don't know. I thought really between the commercial building and a couple of buildings like this that sits in the back there, hardly visible at all from Green Lane, leaving the existing home as it is. I thought that this was a better plan for the neighborhood. I'm certainly willing to work with the neighborhood if there were any specific concerns that we could address. But the only reaction we've gotten so far is just a flat no, not any recommendations for something that we could work with on this. Stan Hitson from Taylor Architects probably has some more information here, and I'll let him present next. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, I am Stan Hitson with Michael Taylor Architects at 118 South Pleasant. I don't have a lot to add to Frank's presentation. This project seemed to us, when Frank came to us as our client, as an ideal buffer project for this very busy corner. His property values, based on continued occupancy and potential sale as an asset as a single-family residence, is severely diminished with the zoning changes that have gone on around it. And I think as a property owner, he has a right to take a look at this kind of development in order to be able to realize property values. I think Frank's very willing to consider with the neighborhoods the types of screening, and screening is going to be involved based on land development codes in to the south and to the west, as your memo was pointing out. And I really think it meets the overlay district's intent, or the overlay study's intent for Willow Creek. It conforms to general plan for low to medium density housing. The other corners have fallen to that already, and to me it's a much milder, better use of this site to buffer the surrounding SF-18 and SF-9 parcels than almost anything else you could do, and still let this landowner realize, I think, the potential of his land as he moves forward. He bought this, like he said, almost 25 years ago, and Willow Creek widening, it made a huge difference in the value of this property as a single-family home. And so I think the appeal here to you is to consider that it's not just a single person or a single neighborhood, but this person, I think, he really has a right to your consideration and how he's going to realize the value of this property moving forward. And I think the additional rental units, there hasn't been an outcry from this neighborhood at all in terms of problems with these renters. I think you'll find that if you question some of the people that I'm sure are anxious to speak on behalf of another point of view. So please keep an open mind, and let's try to help Frank work with this neighborhood to find out what will work here, not just send him away empty-handed. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just for a point of clarification, there's two Franks. I'm not the client. I'm not the applicant. I just want to make that clear.
Councilman Jessica, did you have a comment or something?
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Mayor. Is there an opportunity here for coming to a midpoint resolution? If so, I'd certainly like to see the city help to facilitate that situation. You know, I have to take notice of the 70 or so letters against and no letters for. I do think that there's some fear here that those units will become recovery units, and that would undoubtedly severely, in their estimation, damage the neighborhood. And so I'd like to find a midpoint to resolve this situation. As Frank, have you met with any of the neighbors? As far as trying to alleviate their fears? Okay, thank you.
Councilman Ziska, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't going to bring this up, but just for another point of clarification, the rezoning for this really isn't related to any type of community residence. A community residence or rehab home could apply to go on the site as it is now. It doesn't need to be rezoned or have a general plan amendment for a community residence. They can go in any single-family neighborhoods today. So it's not the reason for this.
Yeah, no, I wasn't referring to that. I was just referring to the fears of the neighbors.
Right.
So,
And I want them to know that.
yeah, no, I understand that. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Afternoon, Council. My name's David Arroyo. Live at 917 Green Lane, born and raised at that property. Never known another. First off, to start, I had started this project because we found out about the possible rezoning and everything, and it concerned us. We love our neighborhood. We have a lot of longtime residents. We have a lot of new residents. All are welcome there, and we've really come together. I had 2 more letters that neighbors had dropped off to submit in opposition. To start off, I wanted to emphasize that we are not against change, and we are definitely not against property owner rights. When the property owner is functioning within the existing zoning, remodel, tear it down, build a new one. It also allows for a guest house. Everybody's for that. Nobody's said anything against that. To address what Mr. Hahn had said about the previous proposal of a commercial building, we didn't oppose it because we didn't know about it. The majority of the neighborhood that I spoke to said they didn't receive letter. Only a few people received letters, and we have a lot of elderly. We've got, they're not communicating as much, so we didn't know about it. And I'm not saying that we would have opposed it, but we didn't know about it, so we couldn't. To address your concern, Councilman Blair, is it right if I step over here? With regards to turning in here, this is actually a blind. You can slide it down. So right here is blind. Coming in here is blind. So if you have cars stacked here.
Could you use the microphone?
Oh, sorry. So this corner here is blind when you're turning. We have a lot of issues with this driveway here. The business doesn't have a stop sign. So people are coming out of here, and to address you, I understand that there hasn't been a lot of accidents reported, but that doesn't mean that accidents weren't avoided. And this is weekly. I see it 2-3 times a week at least. Not just personally. I slam on my brakes at least once a week from people just blindly coming out of here. Now, if you have cars here waiting to turn left into the property, there's a blind corner. They're going to go right into those. That would be something, because a lot of people, I'm not everybody, but we have people that, drive a little faster than they should on a blind curve, come into there. And if you have cars backed up here, cars coming out of here blindly with no stop sign, and then if you have cars here, it's just a bottleneck. And that was just to address the accidents. I understand that, there's not that many accidents reported, but there's a lot avoided per week. I hear screeches and brakes. I'm literally, I don't know, maybe 200 feet from this. So I hear it all, I see it all. If I'm outside, I see people slamming. I'll try and keep it short. Just wanted to make sure you knew that all the petitions submitted were actually from the neighborhood. The backside street, Garland, Ewan, Meadow Ridge. It's like house after house. And I gave the opportunity. I told people if they were for the project, give me a letter. I'll submit it. I didn't get any of those, but I just wanted to emphasize we're not against Mr. Hahn, we just like our neighborhood. We like our community, and we'd like to feel that we have a voice in how it's developed and in what way. Trying to think if there's anything else. I've heard a lot of concerns from our newer residents from California. They moved from California, not solely, but in part because this was happening there. Rezonings, buildings, going up in neighborhoods, established neighborhoods. A lot of these people, we have new buyers, we have longtime residents. When they bought, they're relying on the zoning. And then it's to say, well, now we're going to build a commercial building next to you. Wait, I just bought my building, or I can't afford to sell now. I'm going to put duplexes up next to you. And that just goes out to the personal thing. And I would ask you, in your neighborhood, I'm not opposed to, there's places for it, absolutely. There's necessity for multifamily homes. But in neighborhoods, established neighborhoods, single-family homes, in your own neighborhoods, would you want that next to your property? So that's all I have to say. If you have any questions or anything, I'm just representing, I don't want to represent everybody in our neighborhood, but I kind of spokesperson for that. If you had any questions.
I guess it is a question or an affirmation. Looking at all these different letters that have been submitted, it's not a project, it's about the changing of the half-acre single-family look of your neighborhood.
Yes.
Is that what, would you say that's the majority of it?
Yeah, and like I said, if he proposed within the existing zoning, I don't think there would be any opposition to that. A renovation, a tearing down a building, adding on the guest house that's within that zoning, I don't think there'd be any complaint because we're a single-family home. And yes, we had Santa Fe Springs come, and that ended up being a great thing. But that, again, those are single-family units. We've welcomed them in, they've welcomed us, and that turned out really well. But now we're talking about changing the look of the actual neighborhood, this single-family home neighborhood. We have the businesses across, but that was, again, that wasn't a major concern because that was undeveloped at the time that it was built. It wasn't like they tore down a bunch of stuff to put that up. We're talking about actually changing an existing home in the neighborhood. And people are concerned about that. And also, if a rezoning happens, then it leaves the door open for the plan to be changed again after it's rezoned with the unknown. And I think a lot of people are scared of the unknown.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Do I have anybody that wants to give us any other different information?
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Van Borgany, and I'm out of Santa Fe Springs. I'm also involved with the Homeowners Association in Santa Fe Springs. Our problem is really that corner. All right, the problem is really that corner. When that development, the commercial piece was built in, it was really never dealt with. It never really dealt properly, in my view, with the movement of traffic in there. And the other thing is people are concerned that once we understand there's a whole plan for the main drag that comes next there. But, Green Lane is a pretty narrow street, a very narrow street. And now we're seeing major power lines coming through there. I wonder what is the next plan now? I mean, why you're running, major power plant? It's like you're going to have some sort of a foundry down the other end because you've got some doning ideas. There's some concern here. I'm sorry that the property values are not as high as the owner of the property might have, but in reality, he bought that property and takes the risk like anybody else. All right? People like the fact that it's a single home residential area, and they don't really trust the decision makers that it can stay that way. And that's what's happening here. It was no problem getting people to write and submit complaints about this work. There was no problem whatsoever. If you look at the way that little commercial piece was built, there was never a concern about how do you deal with the traffic on that corner. I know it was difficult to make that corner is a problem. It's a serious problem. And somebody's going to get killed there someday. and you don't have enough room there to work in it. I'm sorry for the owner of the property, but the reality is he bought that piece of property. And when we first look at this, where it was presented as a commercial building, like a doctor's office, it was obvious to them that they couldn't sell that in the neighborhood. And so they used this other option: take the old house, call it a double, a multiple unit house, build a little something in the back. But in reality, the people just don't trust that you're not going to go the next step. And why? When you start seeing those power poles go up, you say to yourself, what the hell's going on? What's going on? And that's what's really happening here. That piece of property does not have good access. I mean, when you look at that little commercial plan, you go and you're trying to pull out a green lane, it's very difficult if there's anything stopped on Willow Creek. And that's a concern. So these are the things and that's why people said, leave us alone. We like our development. That's what we bought into. And Santa Fe Springs still has another 10 lots to be built on. So that's 25% more traffic that'll come out that road. That little commercial center has caused a blind turn up there because they needed the space to sell it to the city. That's why it's there. There isn't that little driveway going onto Green Lane is too narrow. It's too narrow. You can't, people constantly are pulling out of there. They're going to doctor's offices or whatever they're doing, and we have to be careful, very careful, so that we don't run into people. And invariably, they're on their cell phone or looking the other way, and there's very little room to move. The other thing is, if you're really expecting major development down Green Lane, you're going to have to take property all the way along Green Lane because there's nothing to take on the other side, and that's real. So that I just want to share with you that those are the feelings.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll take this gentleman over here.
Mayor, City Council, my name's Andrew Padani, 905 Green Lane. So we are the owners of the property next door at 903. My wife Julie Padani is sitting in the audience as well. Just to give you a little bit of background on ourselves, I'm a federal law enforcement officer with the Department of Interior. My wife is a squad leader on the Prescott National Forest hot shot crew. So we're two individuals that go out every day, literally put our lives on the line for the community and the resources of the area. So when we first moved to Prescott, we lived on Marina Street. Firsthand saw the influences of a high volume housing area. We lived in an apartment complex. Higher rates of crime, noise pollution, it was just nonstop. So found this street, found this neighborhood, loved it like David said. Great neighbors, very quiet area, nice backyard. And that's how we'd like to keep it. It'd be pretty detrimental to us, especially as first-time homeowners, if we had 15, 20 people next door, just zero privacy, just be absolutely detrimental. So I just wanted to get up here in front of y'all and voice my opinion for it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody got anything to say that's totally different from what's been already said? One more thing, that's it.
The reason Green Lane is so narrow, it was made to county standards, not city standards. When you put 3 lanes there, two to exit and 1 coming in, that really cramps it. And it's a blind corner. Something's going to happen there. So if anything changes, you need to widen that road to city standards.
Okay. We'll take one more comment.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Dennis Gallagher, 940 Custer. And until you drive up to that intersection several times a day. You don't understand the problems there. The huge boulder that creates the blind corner, I can tell you my wife and I both, just in the last few weeks, have both almost been hit by cars taking a wide turn when we're pulling up into the left turn lane off of Green to head north on Willow Creek. And besides that, you turn on the green lane from Willow Creek, and you're, I would say, 20% of the time at least, there's a car pulling out of that commercial corner there without stopping at the sidewalk. There is a sidewalk at that point, but the rest of Green Lane, there's no sidewalk, there's no shoulder. There's the huge power poles that have gone in there recently. And anyway, like they said, the corner is extremely dangerous, even if I don't know the accident reports, but I know that we've had to hit our brakes there many times. And that one driveway that comes out of that property is extremely close to Willow Creek. So I think, not speaking for everyone, but I think a lot of us believe that the traffic is a much bigger concern than anything else. We realize that it could become a group home now. That's not the issue for us. It's the traffic. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the council? I think one of the big things that I'm hearing is there's a lot of concern about that intersection. I think that needs to be looked at a lot more closely before I'd feel like I can vote on this. Mayor Pro Tem, you got a comment?
Yeah, Harry, I will. A number of years ago, on our way home, my daughter got in a head-on because of that corner. I do see the problem with traffic in that area, and I do agree that people in Prescott generally don't drive posted speed limits. Doesn't matter what street you're driving on here, you got people going 60 miles an hour sometimes. So I do see some problems up there with sight distance relationships, and I know that our engineers have gone out there and taken a look. But I would think that we need to do a little bit more look at this. And I agree that people do have private property rights, but I also agree that when you buy a piece of property, you also buy the liability and the responsibility of your decision. Anybody has a right to ask for us to sit up here and rezone something. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to. We have to take an objective view of everything that's there and all the considerations that are necessary, not necessarily because I don't like the way it's going to look, but you take a look at the public health and safety issues that might be a point of contention. So very much like you, I'm not in a position to say, hey, I want to vote on this at this point in time because I need a little bit more study. Now, if everybody wants to vote, I'll vote. You can count on it.
Okay, is there a consensus that we want to move forward on the vote?
Move forward to vote? Yes.
Yeah, I think if he wants an answer, we'll give him an answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine, do you have a motion?
So the motion that we have is to adopt. So is there a motion to decline?
No, I think you have to go with that motion.
Okay.
It can fail for the lack of a motion.
Okay.
This one, I think, has two motions on it, right, Frank?
It does.
So I think the first one's for the resolution to amend the general plan.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I would, if that passes, I would ask the next question, move to approve. You're going to have to vote on both anyway, but the first one I think will be telling.
Trying to find it on here.
Here it is.
So the resolution, there we go. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 4359-1568.
Which is what?
The amending of the general plan.
And that one does not require the supermajority vote.
Okay, do you have a second?
So, all right, clarity, sorry. So if I second it, I can still vote no?
Correct.
Okay, then I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Vote, please.
I don't know why this does that.
Motion fails 0-7.
Next motion.
I don't think, do we even need to go to the next? We do? Yeah. Okay, Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 5012-1550.
Second. Okay.
Got a motion and a second. Vote, please.
Motion fails 0-7.
Thank you. Next item.
Item C, approval of a special use permit SUP 16-002 for the installation of a cell tower at 1958 Commerce Center Circle. Site zoning is industrial transition pad. Property owner is Sotwelda Limited Partnership.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a request to install a cell tower at a location on Commerce Center Circle. We've identified a couple of different things on this drawing for you, this aerial photo for you, that may be helpful in the rest of the discussion. The current proposal is located here. It's in the back parking lot behind the Courier building. Previously, about a year and a half ago, a proposal came in to locate the same cell tower, same height approximately, at this location, adjacent to Basis School, adjacent to some commercial center, some commercial businesses just to the east of that location. At that time, there was a great deal of concern about the issues with the height and setback requirements of the cell tower. Our code requires that they meet the height limitation of the district or obtain a waiver from this council as part of the special use permit approval. At that time, they were not granted that waiver. The SUP was denied based on them not making the minimum setback requirement necessary at the location they had proposed, adjacent to, again, the school property. So we received a revised, zoom out here. We received a revised application that included the location being adjusted up here to a place on the existing Commerce Center Circle that gave them the ability to meet the setback requirements for the height. So they still have the issue of requiring the special use permit in order to, not the height, the setback. They still have the issue of the special use permit allowance, and one of those criteria is, again, the height of the structure. The zoning is IT. It's an industrial an industrial light district. Their maximum height is 40 feet allowed by district. The proposed height of the tower will be 70 feet. That's necessary in order to be able to get coverage over the tops of the existing buildings. We do have a representative here from Verizon who will be able to go into some of those details if you want to hear the technical requirements. As a result of the noticing for both our Planning Commission meeting and this meeting, we received a lot of correspondence. You had that included with your packet. The preponderance of that correspondence was in opposition to the cell tower for several different reasons. Some of those reasons are related to the operation of Basis School, and others are related to the visual and financial impacts on nearby properties. So those things are available also in the packet. We can talk about those as you need to talk about them. The actual site plan gives you a little bit better idea of the location. So this is the Courier's building. There's a drive aisle that comes in here. This compound would contain the tower and any ground-mounted equipment necessary to operate the tower, including a backup generator, a backup diesel generator. The location, again, is set far enough away that the height of the tower and this measurement to the right-of-way is 70 feet. They meet that setback requirement based on that requirement. The proposal is for a standard cell tower monopole type of construction. It's 70 feet tall. It has an antenna arrays at the top. Those antenna arrays are in sort of a triangular arrangement. It is not proposed to be disguised as a stealth antenna. It will not be made to look like a tree unless that is part of the conditions that you want to put on it for an approval recommendation. From Verizon, we received a photo rendering indicating what this would look like from the street in front. This photo was taken from across the street from the main entrance into the Commerce Center. You can see the antenna would certainly be visible. It's far above the height of the existing buildings in the development. Most of those buildings are single story. I'm sorry about the microphone there. At this point in time, I would suggest we introduce the Verizon representative to give you a little bit of detail as to why he's here back again in generally the same location or same general area. We're also available to answer any questions, technical questions. I would point out that as part of the staff report, we listed off to you all of the criteria associated with review and approval of cellular communications towers that have our land development code. So that information is available to you as well. With that, I'll end my staff presentation.
Okay, I think we have one question from the Mayor Pro Tem first.
It's going to be a technical question, George. So maybe we want the guy from Verizon up there.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Reg Destry. I'm with Reliant Land Services, representing Verizon Wireless. Mayor Pro Tem, before I start, what was your question?
Okay, my question was going to be very simply, we have, here again, we have specific planning and zoning through different areas of the city. And one of the areas that you're looking at here with regards to cell phone towers, etc., has a 40-foot height scenario in that area. My question is from a technical perspective, what happens if we ask Verizon, stick to what we've asked for? Is it absolutely essential that we go up 70 feet rather than sticking to the 40 feet? Is there anything you can technically address to do the service you want to offer from that location with what that piece of property's height restrictions are?
Yeah, essentially what would happen at staying at 40 feet, that ends up putting the antennas, the center of the antennas are generally what is used as the basis for where the signal is coming out of and returning to the antenna at. So that ends up being at about 35 feet. Now, the problem you run into is that when you're down that low, you have issues twofold. First of all, the signal doesn't travel as far, and secondly, you end up catching a lot of interference. So the topography in the area is problematic, but additionally, you suddenly start dealing with 18, 24-foot houses, the trees that are around them, and two-story apartment complexes, things like that, start blocking that signal very quickly. When you get up to, say, in this case, 70 feet, you would have a 65-foot center line on those antennas. So that allows you to get up above that clutter, and it allows not only the antennas to see out to the phones and devices, but those devices to see back to the phones. So it's the need to get above the physical blockage of buildings for a height like that. To give you some idea, just anecdotally, a lot of times, and they're not quite here yet, but down in Phoenix or in larger metro areas, we do what are called small cell sites. And in those cases, those sites end up being maybe 20, 25 feet tall. And those sites generally cover a couple of blocks. As the sites come down in height, they cover a smaller area. So the normal height for a site of this type would be around 65, 70 feet, regardless of the topography. If we were in a flat area, a site trying to cover this far would be that high. The engineer, I know, would like to go a bit higher, but in this case, we were able to get him to come down to at least stay at this 70-foot level to get a 65-foot antenna height.
Thank you for that explanation.
We have some other questions here. Councilwoman Lizelle.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't need an exact number, but if you had to guess, how many antennas do you have around the country that are kind of this height?
Of this height, several thousand. I mean, Verizon has tens of thousands of cell sites, and they're co-located on tens of thousands more and own several thousand themselves still.
In the event of any of them collapsing, have they ever fallen the height of the tower down?
I am not aware of that, and in this case, the site actually is located that full distance from the property line and right-of-way anyway.
And you guys are pretty heavily insured, and you're, imagine you're looked at, and safety reasons.
Yeah, I mean, from the insurance perspective, there is a good amount of coverage there. Obviously, there would be concern if something did happen, and that's why there's insurance. But
your carrier kind of demands you keep these specifications up.
Absolutely. I mean, it meets all building codes, any current tower codes, and the carrier does not want to lose a site, does not want a safety hazard to exist. I mean, these sites exist so safety hazards aren't around, so people can make phone calls, emergency situations, so fire departments can use their data devices when responding to calls.
And you may know, I know, but for full disclosure, our public safety uses your carrier.
I'm well aware of that, yeah. I've in fact, they had talked to me about an issue they have going into one of the fire stations, which is a problem for them.
And also full disclosure, I'm a Sprint user, but...
To each their own.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Councilwoman Orr?
Reg, right?
Yes.
So, Reg, can you explain to me why, I was at the council meeting last time that you came, and the council said no.
For the previous location?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And the issue was, can you find another location? And so you really didn't move much. You moved a little bit. It seems to me going over on the county property, which is on the other side of Willow Lake, or I'm sorry, yes, across Willow Lake there. There's county property there. It's big open space. Can this tower not go there?
East of Willow Lake, actually, we did talk to the department about that, and there was not interest on the part of the city in going over there. Additionally...
Wait. You talked to whom? I'm sorry. You talked to the county?
I can find the gentleman's name with the city. Are you talking about the county park across Willow Lake? You mean in front of the lake there?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, there's big open area over there.
There is a big open area over there, and that big open area has dells right behind it. All of those individuals to the south of the road would end up looking right at the site, and it would be blocking their view of the dells. Additionally, there is to the... Am I looking at the wrong location? Sorry, let me get a map up here.
Okay, please.
Mr. Mayor, may I move over here? Sure. Thanks. We're talking further up this way, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So as I was saying, I was actually just back out there today. There are a couple of issues with going at that county park. If we were to go on the northeast side of Willow Lake Road there, you end up having, the dells are right there, extremely prominent. So any of those folks living in that community there are going to be looking at that site, and they're going to have the dells right behind it. Additionally, in the area to the southwest, there's actually a large ridge line that starts blocking off the site from being able to serve the desired coverage area. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find if I have a aerial map that might show all this. This one might work a little better. Can I brighten this up a little? So you're speaking of this area right here, somewhere in here?
Actually, a little closer to Prescott Lakes Parkway, right in there.
Okay, so right in here?
Yeah.
All right, well, so again, if we start going here, you get the dells right here, and it actually gets in the view shed of a lot of homes here. As we're currently situated, the dells actually are over here, so part of the reason for the original proposal and for staying kind of where we're at is to stay out of that view shed. And as we start moving this direction, we run into a real problem. There's a ridge line over here that starts creating blockage.
I'm not talking, Reg, about going that way. I'm talking about
just right up here.
Straight a little bit to your right there.
Right here?
Yep. a little bit more to the right.
Right here?
Right in that area. There's a lot of empty land there.
There is
County-
empty land there.
It's county property.
It is county property. You end up being closer to homes than we are in the location we're at now. I mean, unless you start getting quite a ways out into that area. Additionally, there's a very good chance, and I do not know this for sure, there's a very good chance it's actually floodplain or wetland. I don't know that to be sure, though.
Okay, my other question is, there are 3 towers that are in proximity to where you're looking now that are already in Prescott Lakes. There's 2 on Smoke Tree. There's one, I mean, they're electrical towers.
You mean the Wampa Towers, yeah.
Right, the Wampa Towers. My question was, why can we not put these on those existing towers already? And the response from George was that there's not a large enough footprint at the bottom. But on the one that's over by the golf course, there's a lot of room that's good distance from the golf course.
So I guess in looking at that, there are probably 4 that are in line that I've really looked at. The one is right along Prescott Lakes Parkway. That one's too far back up the hill. And
that one's really close to houses too.
Right, yeah. That one's close to houses. The site that is located, again, I can point to, this is the line right here if you're wondering where these are at. There is one that is H-shaped. It's kind of just, that type of structure is not available from WAPA to co-locate on because of the 2 poles. Now, that leaves 2 towers, and the primary one would be the one right on Smoke Tree here.
Right, right on the golf course.
Right on the golf course, correct. Now, from a technical perspective, that is a ways to the southwest of where we were looking. That's actually well outside of the area we were looking to be. It would provide coverage for some homes in this area and get up the canyon. It would not do much up in the dells. The very basic problem with WAPA is you can't get a site done. I would love to. Verizon has a master lease agreement with the Western Area Power Administration. We have a site I've worked on since 2010. It's in Diamond Valley. That site was in fact a co-located site. When US West Quest was acquired by Verizon, they had antennas on it. We have spent the last, 6 years now, and we're going into year 7, trying to just amend that agreement to allow us to put antennas on that site. So even just to change out an antenna, it has taken almost 7 years on a site we were already on. Locating on these sites is not a practical thing. We go on power structures all the time, and like I said, there is a master agreement.
Right there.
Yeah, I understand, and it is southwest of where we were looking, but it was one of the locations I looked at in my initial review of this ring before we even came in with that first candidate.
Councilman Blair.
Yeah, I think the word you used was clutter, and I would say any cell tower, like what I just saw over those buildings, would be cluttered to me. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't require a ponderosa tree, much like what you have at the junior high off of Williamson Valley Road. Those trees that are around that building in the next 10, 15 years are going to grow. And when they grow together, it will be less visible than having a piece of clutter sticking above those buildings. So at anything best, I would suggest that we do something, there you go, something that makes a little bit more sense to me than just a pole sticking up there with ears hanging off of it, unless you want to put a duck up there, and then I'd consider that too.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Blair, as long as there's no hunting, I don't have an issue with that. I will say, it was initially floated the idea of possibly doing a pine tree, and that's in fact why we have this photo simulation. Prior to coming in for our zoning application, we had 2 neighborhood meetings, and that was before the standard process. And at that, I was trying to float the idea, do you want to see a pole, a straight pole like we're proposing? Do you want to see a pine tree? Verizon is open to either way. I know the Commercial Association is open to either way. The preference amongst those that were in support at those meetings was primarily to go with the rusticated steel pole and brown painted antennas. But we would certainly be open if the council were to make a requirement that this be a tree type structure.
I've never been a fashion statement, but I will tell you, that looks better than a metal pole. And from my standpoint, I've been out to the junior high school off of Williamson Valley Road, and the one that's on the football field looks much better than a pole. And these trees that are in front here, they're going to grow in the next, 5, 10, 15 years, and it's going to all blend together. So I think that makes more sense.
Okay.
Councilman Chiska?
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, are we required by any law to make sure that everyone has access to cell service?
I don't think you're necessarily required by law to make sure everyone has cell service. There is, under the Federal Telecommunications Act, a very strong presumption in favor of allowing for cellular technology and people to have cell phones. But I'm unaware of anything that says every American has a constitutional right to have cell service.
Okay, and I noticed that in some of the correspondence there was a petition. It was signed from Basis School about this unit. My question is there anything in the law which talks about the adverse effects of cell tower emissions?
Yes, and if I may, I've got the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996 here, and I'll just put it up on the board so everyone can see what your prohibitions are as a local government in that regard. It's the bottom one. So this is the federal statute that says no local government may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with the Commission's regulations concerning such emissions. And where you see the word commission there, they're referring to the Federal Communication Commission, which did extensive studies on the effects of radio frequency environmental effects. So as a matter of law, you as the voting council cannot consider the effects because Verizon has already gone through the process of meeting the FCC regulations. And we got that concession or admission out of them at the last meeting. And their engineers here will also confirm that. So that's something you really can't focus on in making your determination.
Okay. And a third thing is, what truly are the effects on public safety from us not doing this situation?
You're talking about radio frequency emissions?
Well, no, what I'm talking about is, does our public safety have the communications abilities to fully take care of this area?
Well, I will allow the applicant to address that and their engineer. That's out of my realm. I'm a lawyer, not an engineer.
Yeah.
And you may also hear some comment from the public talking about the science of this. I'm not a scientist. I'm a lawyer, and I'm telling you, the statute's very clear. You can't consider radio frequency emissions. That has been tested in the courts, and they've upheld that.
Thank you. And could you answer that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, yes. As far as the impact, I think you will hear from several of the people that are in support of this will be able to specifically address the issues that they have had in the past regarding not being able to make a call. The issues that I had referenced before with city staff or folks from the fire department, that would simply be anecdotal. I mean, that would be something that the IT department would have to specify if they do really have an issue with that. But there are thousands and thousands of people that drive through this area every day. If they do not have coverage, they are not able to call 911. There are people that live in this area. If they do not have coverage, they're not able to call 911. There are children at the school that have cell phones, probably most of them. And if there is an emergency at school and they don't have signal, they're not able to call 911. So there is a need and impact on public safety from having a site. Now, Verizon, that's basically half of the cell phone customers. They're Verizon customers. So, by prohibiting Verizon Wireless to have signal, there's a very good chance that if there is an emergency, someone may not have coverage. If there are people that do not have coverage, half of them are going to be Verizon customers, and you're going to limit the likelihood of a call coming in a reasonable amount of time, or someone who's fallen being able to call for help, especially say they're in their home. There are real impacts on people's lives from being able to use their cell phones. I mean, there are people that do not have home phones anymore. You know, you see, help, I've fallen, I can't get up. You press the button. Oftentimes that's not operating off of a home line. That's operating off of a cell phone. So this does impact people's lives on a daily basis. And we need coverage here, especially, you'll hear some of the areas that really have spotty coverage. This site is unique in the fact that most of the sites we do now tend to be more related to the amount of capacity, the amount of data we can put through a site. And that is not as much of a public safety issue as someone not being able to connect a call at all because there's just not coverage. There's one bar, no bars. They're doing yoga to try and make that call. Well, if you're on the floor with a heart attack, you're just trying to frantically dial 911 if you even can, and maybe someone pulls your phone, but to have them have to maybe run out front, run into the street, go down the street a bit, this is a real problem. And it is something that we are trying to address. That's why we're here. That's why we're here again. I mean, this is not something that Verizon just decided one day, oh, you know, it would be great to fight this battle to get a site here. It's something that's needed. I mean, they need to fulfill the requirements of their federal licenses and provide coverage to this area.
Thank you. Councilwoman Wilcox.
Mr. Destry, could you define for us exactly what area you are trying to serve?
Certainly. Okay. All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Wilcox, thank you. So this is a coverage map, and what you're seeing here is these are the existing sites we have in the area. Willow Lakes is up off of Commerce. Prescott Highway is actually down at a city facility down by the wastewater treatment there. And Prescott North is over on the left here, is a co-location on a tower at a city water tank. Now, these different colors, the red here for Prescott North means you're getting coverage from this Prescott North site. The yellow from Willow Lakes means the primary coverage is from the Willow Lakes site. And the blue shows Prescott Highway. Now, what you've got here, and this is Prescott Lakes Parkway. This area and then along Smoke Tree are areas that do not have dominant coverage from any of those. And as you will likely hear from a few of the folks they will come and attest. I mean, I can sit here all day and tell you, oh, the levels aren't good. But, you know, I think when people that live here do let you know that, it really kind of helps drive that point home, because what we'd be looking at is the primary goal is to fill in this gap. And what I've got here is once you bring this site, which we're calling Smoke Tree because we're trying to cover up Smoke Tree Lane, is suddenly this green shows up. Now this green becomes the dominant coverage, and that is from this site, AZ2 Smoke Tree. This area is now very, very well covered. There's some additional coverage up through the Dells, which is a nice bonus. I mean, there's not a lot of homes there. There's some homes there, not a lot, certainly traffic. But the primary goal was, and will be for this site to provide coverage in this area where topography does not allow those existing sites to provide coverage into this area, so a site is needed.
What other sites have you looked at in order to achieve that objective?
Allow me to get a few maps out, please. Councilwoman Wilcox, starting with this map here, I will zoom this out a little bit so we can kind of see. And you know what, I'm going to actually add one more in just to give you a little perspective on the location where we are looking and why we're looking in this particular spot. I'll go back to that one later. So the area we were tasked with finding a location in is this AZ2 Smoke Tree. This pin is where we started out at. And again, that area that shows little coverage is through here. And then especially as you start getting up Constable and then further up Smoke Tree Lane as you go up the hill, in that little canyon, there's some topography that causes an issue. So when I go out, as I've explained to this body before, when I go out looking for a site, I look for existing verticality in an area first and foremost. Now, in this particular case, there was none directly within the search area. However, as Councilwoman Orr had pointed out, there are those large WAPA towers down to the southwest. So I did take a look at those then, and I've looked at them again several times since, hoping over time that maybe things would move forward with WAPA on other sites, that we would be able to say, you know what, we can try and make that work now. That has not changed, though. So the other existing verticality closest to this, there is a line of APS poles that are in county right-of-way right along this road. The problem is there is absolutely no ground space there. You've got a very narrow right-of-way because the road is already fairly constricted based on the way that those buildings are set up and the amount of traffic that road receives and will continue to receive. I mean, it's a very, very busy road. That line does continue down towards some of this open space. So there are a few of the poles right here that are, again, APS power poles, and we go on those quite regularly. In the case of these poles, we talked to the city, and the right-of-way folks said, sorry, there's not space available on those. There is space on the ground. There's space on the ground, yes. So the way it works with APS, or usually any power company, we work with them on getting an approval to put our antennas on their structure, and then we need to get additional space on the ground. So that actually became a limiting factor on pretty much all of the APS locations. We locate on APS poles all the time, and in fact, AT&T does have a site over at the Twin Lakes Market. After we started the process last time, I went and looked further at another site at Twin Lakes Market. Now, I did talk to APS again and specifically said, hey, I got a pole number. Is this pole available? And they said, you know what? It looks like it is. Now, that was a shorter site, and I talked to the landlord. They said, hey, they'd be interested in leasing us space. The problem is they don't have any space. So the way their parcel is set up, AT&T is up here with their ground equipment. This is all parking. They've got units, U-Haul units here, U-Haul units here, and U-Haul units here. Now, the best location to put equipment would be right where these U-Haul units are. The problem is, you can see the red outline, that's actually the property boundary. So a lot of that stuff, the majority of that stuff is actually in ADOT right-of-way, which is set for, at some point there will be additional expansion to that roundabout to get more traffic through there. So that is not available. Now, there are some technical limitations to that as well, but that is a location that was considered above and beyond for existing verticality. So once it's determined there is not existing verticality, I start looking and saying, okay, what zoning would be most amenable to what we're proposing here? Now, based on the height, there's always going to be an issue. I mean, when we need to get 60, 70 feet at something, there are very few jurisdictions that have a lot of different zones that would allow that, and Prescott certainly does not. But what we did have here is an IT zone. So there is the IT, there was business general where basis schools ended up going, and then on any side of that you end up having residential. So I started looking at locations to put up a new structure in the least restrictive zoning available, which is that IT. And I started talking to the association that, there's a large commercial association. I looked at possibly going on a few parcels of land they had with a new structure. I also spoke with the owners of these two properties here and asked them if they might be interested. My primary goal has always been to stay along the center line of this IT development because we've got residential to the east, residential to the west, and to that end, I'm trying to stay as far from all residences as possible. So again, we try and stick to that center line. So that's part of the reason we started proposing this old location on that southern parcel that was denied. Now that was before Basis Schools was even there. As we went along fairly slowly, Basis got built, and that obviously became an issue that the council did not feel was appropriate for us to locate in that spot. So after being denied, we did look at a few other options. In the process of that denial, we did talk to Basis about possibly going on some land they own up on the hill over here. While they were interested, they decided they didn't want to do a lease. You may find that there are parents from Basis that have submitted a letter of opposition. They don't particularly like the idea of having a site nearby. They may not realize we're over 400 feet away, but that was one of the locations that was considered. And the reason for that is because putting sites at schools is actually a very common occurrence now. If there was no IT in this zone, we would primarily focus on county, city, any municipally owned land, and then on school district property. As Councilman Blair referenced earlier, you know, we put a site over at the high school, excuse me, at the middle school not too long ago, because that's an entirely residential area. So we found a non-residential use and went into the school. So it's very common not only to have these near schools, but on school property. And I talked to Basis. They were not interested, but I don't know. I mean, I believe they have a site at one of their schools down in the valley, but they were not interested in this particular location. So other things we looked at, this was, Councilwoman Orr, this is the location I was talking about, the city park, Watson Lake option. That was something that was specifically requested that we explore in the process of denial last time. Additionally, we looked at possibly going up here. Now, aside from the technological issues of moving that far away from the search area, there's actually, those are county land, and there's a specific prohibition on building anything there, because that really is right in the Dells all of a sudden. So we wouldn't be able to get any verticality at all in that location. Now, again, back to the IT district, trying to stay in the central spine. So this location did not work for the council, and I had talked to the folks at the Commercial Association initially about locating either here or here on their property. And I can tell you, this may seem odd, but both of those locations were already a little more problematic for the engineer to provide coverage back up Smoke Tree. Now, that wasn't the greatest limiting factor. It kind of boiled down to the issue that, again, you've got residential right here, you've got residential right here. You end up being closer to residential as you get over into that corner. So the goal has always been to be as far away from residences as possible. Now, when we got our denial last time, and I believe it may have been you, Councilwoman Wilcox, that really expressed concern about, you know, public safety, maybe what if there's a fire, what if there's a collapse, the setback's an issue, and that's the reason we moved to the north to get further away from that school, certainly to get further away from the building that was to the east of our structure. So now the location we're proposing meets the one-to-one setback requirement from the roadway, from property lines. I mean, we took what you had to say and we listened. We were trying to come in to fill this need in the best way possible, and trying to stay as close to the middle line of that IT district to stay as far from homes as possible. There are a lot of things we're doing to try to mitigate this. So that's why we're here now with this new location. I mean, I have looked and looked and looked. This started in 2012. I'm back here again, not because I really enjoy having to give long meetings and keep you from all having dinner. I'm here because we need a site.
Thank you. That was a really thorough answer.
Sorry, I talked too much.
That's okay.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Okay, I'll take public comment.
Hi. Hello. My name is Wendy Madsen. I live at 2188 North State Route 89 in Prescott. And I'm here as a parent of a student at Basis School, and I am not at all opposed of there being adequate coverage for everyone, every citizen of Prescott for that matter. I'm simply opposed to the location. And yeah, I did listen very closely to the other alternatives, and I appreciate the fact that he has looked for another location. I have to believe there's still something else. There's still something else out there, because having it that close to a school and on Prescott Lakes Parkway, which is highly congested, not only with a high density of residents, but the businesses, and not to mention the 700 to 800 students that attend that school. And there is a lot of congestion. There are at least 50 cars parked on Prescott Lakes Parkway, probably 3.5 hours a day. just waiting to get into the school. So my concern is that Prescott Lakes Parkway is a one-way thoroughfare, and that itself poses a safety issue with the limited in and out options for the residents, for the students, for parents, for businesses. I can't believe that is the safest place for this tower. And I hope that you all did see the petition that was signed by the parents. There's over 166 signatures, I believe, there. I won't go into the health issues because I know you can't consider that. I think that's suspiciously convenient that we can't vote on this based on health issues. There really can't be that many long-term studies yet because this hasn't been an issue for that long. So the fact that the FCC has their 1996 regulations and they thoroughly looked at that, well, with the advancements of technology going as they are, where's the current evidence though? That's old and probably obsolete at this point. I don't know. We can't, like I said, I won't get into that. I just ask you to sincerely consider the opposition from the parents and the citizens, and I sincerely hope that another location can be found that will meet the needs for these residents.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Council Mayor, good evening. My name is Dana McCready. I reside at 1691 St. Andrews Way in the cottages at Prescott Lakes. I live across the street from the proposed location. I regret to say that I'm here again 2 years later before you to voice my continued opposition to the proposed cell tower. What I see here is that Verizon is still trying to shoehorn their cell tower into an inadequate site. My continuing concern is its inadequate siting and resulting possible threat to public safety. I understand that you consider this application under the guise of the Prescott Land Development Code. I read that code, and it says the purpose of the regulations shall protect residential areas and land uses from potential adverse impacts of towers and antennas, as well as consider the public health and safety associated with wireless communications facilities. That is verbatim from the Prescott Land Development Code. As you know, the initial location proposed by Verizon was a threat to the public safety of not only the surrounding businesses of the Prescott Lakes Commercial Park, but also the surrounding residences, as you see on the diagram before you, and the school neighbors of basis. The new location you're considering today is still a threat, and this is why I see that. You've talked about the setback requirements. There is terminology in this business called a fall zone. The proposed height of 70 feet does meet the setback, but as you've heard discussed, it does adjoin the right-of-way of that cul-de-sac. That cul-de-sac is a one-way ingress and egress for the Commerce Center Circle. Additionally, the Courier office building, as measured by Mr. Destry, is probably about 60 feet from the proposed tower location. There's been discussion of the structural integrity of cell towers. Do they fall? Do they catch fire? Yes, they do. If you do an internet search, the most recent incident that I found was in June of 2015. It was a cell tower fire in Virginia behind a high school. It's not necessarily an act of nature that sets cell towers on fire. This was a welding incident. Wiring caught fire, rapidly spread along the tower. Fire was so intense, the metal tower was compromised and began to lean. So I just want to point out that it's not necessarily a bolt of lightning or a high windstorm, fire can occur. The proposed tower location, again, is within a busy business park. As was just pointed out, Prescott Lakes Parkway is a very busy city street. You have residences, homeowners across the street in the cottages where I reside. You have the Legacy Apartments now directly across the street, probably fully occupied. You also have residences to the east of the proposed location. I just ask that you consider a prudent enforcement of height requirements. We have the Prescott Land Development Code to protect us as citizens of Prescott, and we just ask that you abide by the standards of this code. They should not be negotiable, despite the big stick that the Telecommunications Act does wield. I respectfully request that you deny this application, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Elise Rose. I live at 1690 St. Andrews Way. And first of all, I would like to thank Tom Geist, Community Development Director, George Worley, and Planning Department Manager, and their team for all their hard work on this matter for all concerned. I've been a Prescott Lakes homeowner for 13 years. I chose my location in part for the views. Reg Destry, at his informational meeting at City Hall, said Verizon was going to redirect the array of the 89 tower to Smoke Tree. Should not the outcome of that be determined before this would even come to a vote? There are 17 cell towers in Prescott alone. The technology is rapidly changing and moving to fiber optics, as in Paradise Valley. And this 70-foot tower, as Dina pointed out, can be seen as contradictory to the Prescott Land Development Code, which the city attorney acknowledged. And regarding the 1996 Telecommunications Act, there's also language which states in Section 253B, nothing shall affect the ability of a state to impose requirements necessary to protect the public safety and welfare and safeguard the rights of consumers. There is no guarantee that the Constable people so close to the electrical towers and hanging electrical lines will get improved reception with another tower. Residents off Mariposa, so close to the electrical towers as well, have had the same issues, and they are very close to cell towers. If those residents or anyone do not have their cell phone on them or are alone, or in their backyard, a cell phone or tower would not help in an emergency situation. Cell phone calls to 911 often do not give an address. They have to ping off a tower and usually are only accurate for 100 feet or so. AT&T, as Mr. Destry said, was open to collating with Verizon on the current existing tower at Twin Lakes Market. Since there is only one 250-gallon diesel generator needed, Verizon's shed would be smaller. And there appears to be enough room. Now, I'm not an engineer, but I ask the question, has an independent expert verified Mr. Destry's statement that there is not sufficient space for the shed? There are also large parcels of commercial property at Prescott Lakes Parkway and 89 and up the hill that could be appropriate and would not have to be 70 feet tall. There are many reports of other countries, governments, some cities, and states in the U.S. banning cell towers close to schools. The California Public Utilities Commission, among others, urges that cell towers not be placed near hospitals or schools. The U.S. FCC cell tower regulations are 20 years outdated and some of the least protective in the world. It is a fact cell towers do catch fire and collapse, and Prescott has cut its fire budget. So the fire response times are affected. As was mentioned, there's limited access into and out of the Commerce Center and one-way in access into and out of the school. There were 14 tower collapses dating from March 2013 to May 2014. There were 10 cell tower fires from June of 2013 to February 2nd, 2014. In 2014, cell tower work caused 6 deaths, 5 cell tower workers, and 1 firefighter. All this information is readily available from news sources. The pictures of cell tower fires are indeed frightening. Negative impact on property values. This has been proven across the country and generally negatively impact property values 10 to 20%. HUD requires their appraisers to factor this in when appraising properties. Cell towers are classified as nuisances. Tom Menzer, Planning and Zoning Commission Chairman, said of the Copper Basin cell tower proposal, the city wanting to site it there for profit kind of smelled. Those were his words. Could not this issue be considered the same? A person who works for Verizon said the Commerce Center location was Verizon's 3rd choice of location, but their hands were tied because the courier owner insists that it be on her property. This is obviously for the large windfall income that the tower would garner. Where is the regard for the safety and well-being of 800 school children, over 600 residents of the legacy apartments in the cottages, and homeowners, employees of the Commerce Center or anyone else's property values, not to mention the impact of 70-foot tower on residents and homeowners' views. Some cities in the U.S. have already adopted a precautionary principle to decision-making. Sadly, if this location is approved, the city of Prescott, at the very least, can expect property owners' monetary claims under Arizona Proposition 207. Thank you for your serious consideration in denying this location for the safety of the 800 basis school children, residents, protection of property values, especially when there are more appropriate locations for another tower. I hope the pastor's evocations at the beginning of this session are taken to heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll take one more comment, but it's got to be different than what we've already heard. We've already heard about fires, collapse, 207 land, so it's got to be something new.
And council, my name's Mike Heffley. I'm 1681 Constable. I've been here for 3.5 years. My wife is a realtor. She has AT&T. I have Verizon. The AT&T tower is close. We're so low. My service is better than hers, but we have to go outside to make a call. If we're inside, it just rolls to voicemail. We've had neighbors that have had to try calling 911. They had their cell phone. Mine is on me all the time. It would not go through. I'll ask the Verizon person if I'm correct on this, but when we went from analog to digital, it's line of sight. So if you're familiar with the area, we've got Predator Ridge and Astoria. They block the tower that's down on 89. That's below the top of that hill. Also, you heard about bandwidth. Since Basis School went in, every kid there has a cell phone. Everybody has a computer. They're all running off of Wi-Fi. We've lost our bandwidth. I worked on, I've been a member of the community and on the land management committee for 3 years. I sat on the board of directors there for 2 years. I'm real familiar with the area. If you go up to our clubhouse, you can't use your phone. The reason you need a 70-foot tower is that clubhouse is at least 60 feet higher than the road. So there again, it's the line of sight issue. I know several people on the back side of the cottages that do not have coverage either. because they're on the back side of the lower hill. There is nowhere to get coverage. So, you know, you have three, you should have 3 petitions, one from Lakeside, one from the Retreat, one from Willow Park. Those are all homeowners that live in that area. There's at least 140 of us that have this problem. And, you know, I had landlines. I had that through a cable company. That wasn't really dependable either. So we are pleading for this tower. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman
can I-
Orr?
Yes. Mike, I want to thank you. I actually took my phone and spent about an hour just going around the neighborhood and trying to see where there's, I mean, it goes from 4, 5 to 1.
1 or less.
And, yeah, and I never hit a totally dead zone. And then I talked to people just walking, and I guess even some of the conversations, if you're able to get through, they're garbled.
Tony was in front of my house.
Yeah,
and
so
couldn't.
I understand that there's a need. I was just hoping that we could take advantage of towers that are already existing.
Yeah, me too. But you know, I've worked with all these engineers. I have an engineering background too, and unfortunately, hills and houses, they're a problem. Thank you.
Okay. I think we need to wrap this up. I think one of the things that I've got a question for the council is, in the land code, I mean, basically what they're asking for to go above the 40 feet is a special use permit. Is that correct?
Do you want to address, it's a waiver of our general 40-foot allowance.
The special use permit process for cellular communications recognizes that there are often taller requirements for the cellular communication than our zoning district, which is really focused on building type structures. So there's a waiver provision that's written in that allows council to waive the height in granting an SUP if you believe that it provides better or adequate service to the area. So that's built into the code and can be done just as part of an approval of an SUP should you go that route.
Okay. One of the things, you know, I've heard several people mention here is view shed. And I can tell you, there's a lot of residential areas around there. So no matter where you put it, you're probably going to find somebody that says it's in my view, and they don't like it. And they're going to say, well, you know, that's ruining my property values or whatever. So, you know, I understand that concern, but I don't think there's any place we could put one out there that wouldn't impact somebody. I think it's very important that we ensure that people have the ability to make emergency calls. If somebody goes down in their house, they're not going to be able to low crawl all the way out to someplace where they can actually make a call. So, you know, I think it's incumbent upon the council here to take that into consideration. I sure don't want to have somebody's death on my hands because we couldn't come up with a way to make somebody have the opportunity to be able to use their phone. I guess the last question I have, and you know, where we're actually going to put the tower, I guess that's going to be located right around the Courier building?
It is, sir. It's in the back parking lot of the Courier building. There's
Yeah.
a vacant area.
So is there a lot of the businesses in there having problems with phone service? Because I remember when the Courier was here some time ago before we got on the council, and this was brought up before, I remember the person from the Courier come in saying that they were having difficulty getting good phone service there. So will that eliminate some of that?
And I think that would be a question for Mr. Red.
Okay. So you don't know the effect?
We haven't had any direct communications from any of the businesses advising us of that type of an issue.
Okay. What can you tell us about that?
Mr. Mayor, as I said before, the primary goal is to get coverage in that residential area. There are some issues with coverage inside these buildings, but that's more from a data throughput perspective than a call. You know, there's going to be more than one bar, but the data is pretty slow through there as well because the sites don't really serve that. What it's getting right now is from up on Commerce, from the Willow Lakes site. So they do have some coverage in there. It's not great, but the data is really bad in there.
Okay. Councilman Shiska.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm a Sprint customer. Am I going to be the guy who can't reach 911? You know, I think to a point we're picking winners and losers here. And I don't want everybody to lose, but you know, I really do think that I would like a more universal solution to this problem. I'm not sure that I could get it, but I certainly would like to have something like that. My biggest concern is communication with police and fire. Is this going to create superior communication for police and fire if, in fact, they hook up with a tower in that area?
I think you said yes.
Yeah, it will certainly help. I mean, it is designed to make sure that there is coverage up through there, up through Smoke Tree Lane especially.
And I agree with Councilman Blair. I think a pine tree does look a lot better than a pole sticking up there with a couple of ears on it. So,
And Mayor, I do too. I mean, we just took a road trip to Texas and back, and I probably spotted every cell tower. And the ones that had this tree look, they really look much better than just the pole. I don't know, but that's something. But if the neighbors decided something different, I think if you could make it look more like a pine tree, because like Steve said, those trees are going to grow around it. I think it would look better than a pole.
On top of it,
Yeah, decorate at Christmas.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I think I see Battalion Chief Devendorf in the back. Is that? Can you come up front for just a moment?
Should have stayed at home.
Timing's everything.
What can I do for you, Mayor Pro Tem?
Do you guys over there at the fire department experience blackouts and lack of cell phone coverage, etc.?
Yes, sir. We lose signal on Smoke Tree Lane coming in off of Prescott Lakes Parkway. It causes our mobile data computers to drop the signal. We lose information, and then it comes back once we get to the far side.
All right, thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mayor, could I ask? So this would help that communication?
Yes, sir. All of our mobile data computers in the police and fire cars are on the Verizon network. So when we go through that area, and as Reg said, data is more of an issue than phone signal, we use the data. That's how we hook up with all of our mobile emergency communications.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's vote.
Okay, any other comments, questions from the council? Okay, do I have a motion?
Mayor, I will move to adopt ordinance number 5012-1550. Can we put with a pine tree or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Decorated.
That's
No.
not the right motion.
No, I'm sorry.
Move to approve special use permit number 16-002.
I'm sorry. Okay. Move to approve special use permit number 16-002 with a pine tree.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion, but I don't think I heard
Heard
a
a
second.
second.
Oh, you did second?
Yes.
Okay, I got a motion, second vote, please.
Passes 6-1. Councilwoman Wilcox dissenting.
Next item, please.
She must be spread too.
Item D, adoption of resolution number 4368-1577, approving the city water management and calendar year 2017 alternative water allocation policy.
Good evening, Mayor Olberger and council members. I'm Leslie Grazer, Water Resource Manager for the City of Prescott. I would like to just take a brief moment to thank the Council Water Issues Committee members as they worked during the past 3 months through in-depth meetings in order to come to this policy statement you have before you today. For the sake of time, if it's okay, I'd like to just use the agenda memo to move through the highlights because I don't think, well, you had this at study session just a month ago. I can identify the highlights and then proceed with any questions you may have. Move down here to the public process. As you can see, that's been worked on for several months now. The last meeting of the committee was December 6th. In that meeting, they recommended a 20 acre-foot increase to the residential allocation. Updates to the data or the dates and volumes referenced within the policy. So as contracts were going out, we were clocking them, but we needed to bring the memo up to date or the policy up to date. And the last item was policy 14 related to apartments. There was additional language put in that said a project that was in process during calendar year 2016 could continue to move forward, even though there's statements about no additional apartments at this time. So jumping back up to the top of your memo, just quickly, the item summary: approval of the attached water management and calendar year 2017 alternative water allocation policy is recommended to become effective January 1st, 2017 and extend through December 31st, 2017. The policy further provides a framework and guidance for water management during calendar years 2018 through 2020. And what that means is generally state laws aren't going to change, so there should be a basic structure, and there's just an update to Section 5 of the policy setting forth the volumes of alternative water to be made available for new development. That part will be updated annually. Apologize, jumping around again to this block in your memo. As you're aware, the alternative water block within the overall portfolio is getting small. However, it's important to understand that there is an overall portfolio. And if you just take a look at the groundwater side of the portfolio and the alternative water that's already in contract, there could be up to over 10,000 builds in this area. So it's important not to lose sight of that. I'll go ahead and catch up here with the highlights and the changes. This is the last item I'd like to bring before you. The balance of the unreserved and unallocated alternative water at the end, basically of December 6th of the last committee meeting is 128.25 acre feet. Item 2 there, proposed alternative water budget for calendar year 2017 is 70 acre feet for residential and 100 acre feet for commercial. So the last time you saw this in your study session, it was 50 acre feet. The committee, because there were remainders from this year, said let's go ahead and move in 20 additional acre feet into residential. If the calendar year 2017 quantities above of 70 acre feet and 100 acre feet commercial are fully allocated to new development in 2017, the opening balance of the alternative water in 2018 available for budgeting would be a combination of 50 acre feet, meaning taking a reduction from the vacant residential. Once again, this is all defined in policy, and we can go into more detail if needed. Otherwise, we keep moving ahead, and then 8.25 acre feet from the alternative water. It's important to note the alternative water quantities are separate from and do not include the alternative water imported, meaning Big Chino. So we're not allocating out in this policy any of the Big Chino water. Here again, highlights with number 4, because this is an ongoing work project. This policy does state or retain 0.35 for single family and 0.25 for multifamily. And my area will continue to work with the committee to address possibly changes to that allocation in the future. Alternative water will not be allocated in 2017 to support lot splits occurring in subdivisions that have groundwater allowance. So there's greater policy on lot splits. We recognize some things along the way, and I've opened things up. But if a lot within a groundwater subdivision comes in and splits and needs alternative water, this policy statement is saying we're not doing that. There was a designated amount of groundwater supplies made for that groundwater subdivision at one time, and when you start splitting up and trying to pull more in, it kind of takes away from the original intent of that subdivision. Item 6, we're almost there. We just have to get to 9. In absence of a pre-existing agreement, alternative water shall not be allocated to uses returning less than 50% to the wastewater treatment plants. Quickly again, that's because of state laws have changed significantly since things all started here in Prescott. And in 1998, it's a recharge and recovery stance that the city has to make its way into more firmly. The city will accept extinguished irrigation grandfathered rights from other parties to supplement water necessary for a development. So if this next year's policy does not have the full amount a developer is interested in, they can acquire and bring forward irrigation grandfathered rights. And if we look back in 2005, this was the case before. This has been utilized by the city in development in the past. Water service agreements for allocated alternative water shall contain performance criteria and expiration dates. So if it's sent out for 3 years and there's no activity, this doesn't come to fruition, it comes back into the portfolio to allow for another project to move ahead. And the last one is applications. I think we'll slowly read through this one. Applications shall be accepted but not acted upon in calendar year 2017 for water service agreements to serve new apartment projects unless they meet the policy conditions. And so I didn't pull that up for you to see, but let me just move to that in my packet here real quick. The full statement is new applications for water service agreements to serve apartments shall be accepted but not acted upon in the 2017 calendar year unless it is a project for which a portion of the needed water supplies have been allocated in an earlier contract. A project was in process during calendar year 2016, so if we had somebody come in at the end of the calendar year and they're in process, we didn't want to slam the door. Or it's an Exhibit A project, and that's something we've discussed in the past. They have the opportunity to come in until June 30th, 2017. The city shall prepare a report assessing inventories and demands for apartments and other housing types within city limits. Findings will be reported to the council as input for calendar year 2018 water allocation policy and budget. So the door isn't forever shut on apartment complexes. It's taking a moment to look at housing study across the different types of housing and see with the supplies that are remaining from the alternative bucket, what that might, how should that water be used. It wouldn't be my decision by any means. It's a council decision. And that's all I have for this item. I'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
Councilman Lozelle.
Thank you, Mayor. Leslie, a few meetings ago, we approved a project as a council because they used the affordable housing or workforce housing.
Yes, sir.
Did we remove that language from this new policy?
This, the column headings solely are residential now and commercial.
Okay.
So there's not a separate pool. The pool's fairly small, and this past year was the last year we'd really kind of divvy that up.
Okay.
So workforce housing would have just as much standing as somebody else, pending its approval
Sure.
of council. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Any from the public? Do you have a motion?
Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 4368-1577.
Second.
Okay, a motion, second vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Next item, please.
Item E, approval to enter into contract negotiations with Eagle Management and Events LLC for planning and implementation of the 2017 4th of July special event, city contract number 2017-173.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I find this kind of ironic. My wife starts shopping for Christmas right around the 4th of July, and now here we are talking about the 4th of July right around Christmas. So in November of 2015, with increasing pressure on the general fund, Council gave staff direction to discontinue financial support of the 4th of July event, which had been held out at Pioneer Park, saving the general fund anywhere between $80,000 and $100,000, so a pretty significant savings. So last year we went out to request for proposals and contracted with an individual or a company to do the event downtown Prescott. 4th of July last year fell on a Monday, which was a good day to have it downtown. So the positive effect was it increased the foot traffic downtown, which consequently increased the spending downtown at a time where if they would have been out at Pioneer Park, there would have been less tax revenue generated. On the negative side, the smaller fallout zone creates a smaller fireworks event. We can't do the large mortar size fireworks out there. So this year we went back to the same methodology, put out an RFP, put together a review team that consisted of a representative from the Prescott Downtown Partnership, the Chamber of Commerce, City Manager's Office, the Fire Department, and a person off of my Recreation Services Board to review the RFP to make sure that we were addressing some concerns that had been brought up last year, primarily the duration of the fireworks, a distinct beginning, a distinct closing, some things that we noticed from last year that we think we can improve on. So we convened this committee that looked at the RFP, sent the RFP out to 19 different firms from across the state, only received one proposal, but the committee was reconvened then to evaluate that proposal and unanimously recommended that the proposal submitted by Eagle Management and Events LLC was a comprehensive proposal with the best chance for successful implementation. A couple of the details from the proposed event are that the event will be held again on Tuesday, July 4th, Prescott Mile High Middle School football field. Attractions will include a kids zone, a stage with 3 live bands, food vendors and liquor sales. I think last year we had as many as 5 water slides set up. So there was a pretty good amount of things for the kids to do downtown and spend the day down there. The event will provide a fireworks display to be launched from the Granite Street parking garage starting at 9 o'clock. This year there's a different fireworks provider that we think will provide a better technical show. The duration of the fireworks has been increased from 16 minutes last year to 22 minutes this year, so a 25% increase in the duration of the fireworks. Of course, they've met all the insurance requirements that the city requires, and I think the good news about this is that there's no city funding involved in this event. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I've also got Chief Devendorf here to answer any questions about fireworks.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. Joe, thank you for doing what you were asked to do to begin with. You weaned off paying out of the city taxpayers' money to support something that the citizens really need to do on their own, and we do that through various revenue streams, but it's not city revenue streams, and we put it out for RFP. Earlier we discussed another project. That's my point. We didn't cancel the 4th of July, and we're not going to cancel spring. So, however, we still went forward. So thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Any from the public? Do you have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we enter into contract negotiations with Eagle Management and Events LLC to plan and implement the 2017 4th of July special event, city contract number 2017-173.
Second.
Have a motion and a second vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Next item, please.
Item F, approval for allocation of streets funding for the SR 69 Safety and Widening Project in an amount not to exceed $150,000 streets fund.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks, Dana. I forgot why I'm here. Wake me up. I think you are all quite familiar with this next project, and this is something you wanted to see for a long time. This is about SR 69. As you know, SR 69 is a state road. We really don't have any control over maintenance or reconstruction. However, we as people in Prescott drive over it every day, in fact, many, many thousands of times. There have been over 580 accidents in the last 5 years, 4 fatalities, but this project hasn't been in the radar for ADOT to bring it up for widening. In the past 2.5 years, I have been working with ADOT, with the county, in the city, with our SIMPO, and finally, we have come up to an agreement that we believe is going to help everyone. I know Councilwoman Billy Orr has been very involved in this, and she's, of course, SIMPO, and former council member Chris Cookney was quite involved with this. So what this is we bring with $150,000 from the city and $150,000 from the county, and NACOG, Northern Arizona Council of Government, has agreed to shift $650,000. This is towards the design. That makes the total $300 plus $650, $950,000 for the design of this project, with the hope that this project will come up at the next State Transportation Board meeting to discuss funding, I think in the first half of next calendar year. There is no guarantee, but we all have very good feeling talking to them that this is going to come on top, and that's why we are here before you. I'll be happy to answer any questions. By the way, the County Board of Supervisors did approve their part a couple of weeks ago.
Any questions, comments from the council?
Just a comment. So close to $1 million to design this.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay.
Councilwoman Orr.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Henry. It's we've been trying to get this in front of council for quite a while, and we really appreciate the support. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Any from the public? Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the allocation of streets funding for the SR 69 Safety and Widening Design Project in an amount not to exceed $150,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Next item, please.
Thank you.
Item G, award of city contract number 2017-064 for the solid waste hauling services to Fan Contracting in an estimated annual amount of $735,000 solid waste fund.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The city has been under contract with Fan Contracting for solid waste hauling services since 2009, and that contract it's set to expire in March of 2017. So the Solid Waste Division issued a request for proposal back in September to interested companies to provide solid waste hauling services. We had a mandatory pre-bid meeting, and we received 2 bids on October 20th. An evaluation committee reviewed the bids and rated the 2 proposals, and based upon the results of the evaluation, award the Fan Contracting as the most responsible bidder as recommended. The initial term of the contract will be for 5 years, and then there's a 5 additional 1-year option years for a total of 10 years. And the city may administratively extend the contract in the future without additional council approval. And ton prices will be adjusted annually based on consumer price indexes as cited in the request for proposal. And the fuel will be adjusted semi-annually, also based on a CPI for fuel. And with there is funding of $735,000 available in the fiscal year 17 solid waste fund for this contract. And Mr. Fan is here this evening also. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions, comments from the council? Any from the public? Do I have a motion?
Mayor, move to adjourn for pizza. No, that's the wrong one. move to award city contract number 2017-064.
Second.
Yeah, motion and second vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Next item, please.
Item H, approval of 19 original equipment manufacturing OEM and aftermarket parts contracts listed through the Strategic Alliance Volume Expenditures Cooperative Purchasing Agreement.
Mayor and Council, the Fleet Services Division routinely purchases original equipment manufacturer and aftermarket parts for repair of city vehicles and equipment. And per the city's procurement code, we are able to use state agency contracts when it is when it is in the city's best interest to do so. These contracts are through the Strategic Alliance Volume Expenditures Cooperative Purchasing Group, which means that they have been competitively bid and awarded by various state agencies for heavy and light duty OEM and aftermarket parts. The requested contract amounts that we're requesting are based upon fiscal year 15 and fiscal year 16 actual expenditures for parts, and it is anticipated these amounts will be necessary annually over the life of the contracts. Contract terms will vary for each individual contract based on the lead agency's contract with the company, and approval is being requested to use these contracts as long as they are valid. And pricing for parts is based upon a percentage off of the discount, a percentage off of the catalog pricing, pardon me. And having access to these suppliers through these contracts will help improve Fleet Services Division efficiencies, parts inventory, and customer service, and it'll also provide a cost savings to the city. We usually get a lot better pricing using these state agency contracts than if we just go out and have to buy it on the open market. And this also brings our purchasing for fleet parts into compliance with our city procurement code. And we do have funding of $430,000 available in the current year fleet services budget for buying parts. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions or comments from the council?
Mayor or Matt, does this, before we read this ordinance, do all the contracts have to be set?
No. As a matter of fact, if you look at the proposed motion, it's per all the contracts listed on Attachment A. Okay. And because contracts are an administrative action, not legislative, you don't have to do each contract individually. So
okay.
that motion's okay.
Okay.
Do it, Greg, then.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Any from the public? Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve 19 original equipment manufacturings, which include Attachment A of OEM aftermarket parts contract list.
Second.
Yeah, motion second. Vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Next item.
Item I, ratification of payment for emergency snowplow edge purchase from Cutting Edge Supplies in the total amount of $38,622.95, city contract number 2017-192, Fleet Maintenance Fund.
Mayor and Council, the Street Maintenance Division utilizes snow plows when they respond to winter storms, and we have about 12 plows to run citywide. And each truck is equipped with a snow plow and a cinder spreader. And for several years now, the division has been, the practice has been to place the snow plow edges right on the asphalt when they're plowing. This practice allows for removal of snow down to the actual street. And once the sun starts to shine, we pick up that thermal gain, and it allows the snow to get a better melt, so we have less likelihood of ice buildup doing it this way. However, doing so brought up questions: is this the best way that we should be plowing? Other cities don't plow this way. Plus, we are trying to do some cost containment on what it costs when we do our snow plowing operations. So we basically had Fleet Services do a survey of other comparable cities to see what their best practice was when it came to snow plowing, and should the plow edges be right on the asphalt. What we found out is the survey highlighted that there really is no best management practices out there, that it's pretty widespread on what different communities are doing and what type of blades they're using, etc. So Fleet Services and Street Maintenance got together and decided that it was probably a good idea to do a pilot program with various plow edges this upcoming winter storm season. Well, by the time we put all the information together, got the responses from some of the cities that we surveyed, we were into October. So I had requested through the then deputy city manager and the current city manager permission to go ahead and put in a purchase order to buy certain plow edges that will go along with the pilot program. So they had gone ahead and signed off on that, and the council was notified through a memo dated October 27th of this necessary procurement for the plow edges, just so we can go ahead and do this study. So the study is going to involve testing 3 different plow edges: a rubberized carbide steel, and a mild steel edge. And the 2 divisions are going to track how long each plow edge lasts, the type of damage the plows or the roads may experience, and the overall cost per mile of the plow edge. So this is a situation where we might find that our initial cost of a plow edge is not very much, but it doesn't have a very long useful life, whereas if we buy a more expensive edge, it might go much longer. So we're anxious to find out what the results are going to be. So once the storm season has passed, Fleet and Street Maintenance will review the results of the pilot program and determine whether any changes to the current practice is necessary. So the only plow edges that we had authorization for 2 vendors to go ahead and purchase through them. What we didn't have was an authorization to buy from Cutting Edge Supplies. So this is the ratification of that purchase that we made, so that we have all of our inventory for the upcoming snow season. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions, comments from the council? Any from the public? Do you have a motion?
Mayor, I move ratification of payment for emergency snowplow edge purchase from Cutting Edge Supplies in the total amount of $38,622.95. City contract number 2017-192.
Second.
I have a motion, second vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
You sound like you were doing a cutting edge commercial.
Next item, please.
Item J, award of city contract number 2017-202 to J. Penneke Construction Incorporated for the Rodeo Grounds Arena Lighting Project in the amount of $266,142, general fund.
Mayor and council, this item will award a construction contract for the arena lighting project. In order to address the rehabilitation of the dilapidated electrical system out at the rodeo grounds, the Facilities Management Division budgeted in the current fiscal year for a phased electrical improvement project. It would be done in this fiscal year and also in fiscal year 18. However, once we began design work on the project, it became apparent that there was really not a good way to split the project where we could do part in this year and part in next year. So a decision was made to just do the project in whole. So in order to meet the timeline, we're on a fairly strict timeline we want to be done with everything before the next rodeo. It was easy to split out the arena lighting portion of this project, so that's what this portion of the project is. It's just for the arena lighting part of it. And the remainder of the project should be coming before you in January. It goes out for bid this coming weekend. So by the time we receive those bids, probably January 24th, that will be before you for the rest of the electrical improvements at the rodeo grounds. There was a mandatory pre-bid in November, and 11 contractors attended. We actually had 5 bids that we received, and the low bid was J. Baneke Construction. They're the lowest responsible bidder, so we recommend award to them. And the milestone dates on this is if we get approval this evening, pre-construction conference will occur the first week in January, second or January 9th. We'll issue the notice to proceed the week of January 23rd, and construction completion just for the arena lighting portion is about March 24th of next year. And I'd like to talk about the financial impact just briefly. We did budget $925,000 in the current fiscal year, and another $475,000 next year for a combined $1.4 million. For the entire project over 2 years. To date, we have awarded an engineering design contract, which was roughly $240,000, and then that engineering contract plus this arena project will leave about a budget of $420,000 remaining for construction of the rest of the project. But when we get those bids in, we'll know more what the cost is going to be. So at that point, when we award for the rest of the project, if this current year appropriation that's remaining is not enough, then we will be coming back to you to do some reappropriations of funds in the current fiscal year. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Councilwoman Wilcox.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, Councilman Shishka, Councilwoman Orr, and I have been working on a strategic plan oversight. And, our first goal is to stabilize the general fund. And we will be having discussions weekly, bi-weekly for the next couple of months or months, and coming back to the council with a recommendation for finding additional revenue sources to pay off the PSPRS debt. And I think since we've already received the bill for next year, the PSPRS, which is going to be another $1.2 million over and above what we're paying now, we have to think now about how we're spending out of the general fund so we have that money so we can pay the bill. So I really cannot support this kind of expenditure out of the general fund. I think we should defer this project until we have a funding source in place where we have an additional source of revenue to pay down that And that should happen in the next year. So we could defer this. Won't kill the rodeo. Won't be as nice as it could be, but it won't kill it.
Councilwoman, I appreciate your comment. One of the reasons this project is in the current fiscal year is it has been a problem at the rodeo grounds. There are definite safety issues with the electrical that is out there. I just want to mention that so everybody's reminded of the safety enhancements that this project will bring with it, limiting the city's liability potentially.
Councilman Blair?
Yeah, I suppose the comment that I would have, knowing that it's split into two pieces. Number one, if we awarded the contract for the whole thing, but understanding it was in 2 separate years, do we think we would recognize a better price differential from Banachie Construction? And I have some concern about the different methods different electrical companies use based upon an overall project that big, whether one would be compatible with the other. Understanding an engineer drew it, but also understanding that I think that maybe there might be some cost savings by awarding the whole contract and deferring the work.
Councilman Blair, when the team looked at the project, like I said, time was a big factor. Where the arena lighting draws its power source is separate and apart from where the rest of it does. And when we talked to Prescott Frontier Days, they have definite concerns with the arena lighting, which was another reason why we wanted to move forward with that project in particular. This last rodeo season, the lights go out. They even have small fires on the poles because the arena lighting is that bad. So getting that much going was critical to them, and like I said, it was easy to split the project. Would there be any savings from mobilizing 2 different contractors? Probably. But if we don't even know yet. We're hoping we'll get bids, and we're pretty sure we'll get bids on the next phase. But even if we didn't, we were at least still interested in getting that arena lighting fixed so that they don't have to worry about any kind of issues with it going into the next rodeo season. Well, I think it was J.C. Trujillo who said, if we don't have lighting, we won't have any rodeo at night, and the cowboys will quit coming to town, etc. So the arena lighting was big on their list to get it moving forward, in hopes that we could get it completed if nothing else got done.
Well, I understand what Gene's saying with the general fund, but you made the comment in a public meeting that's a public safety issue, so that's changed my mind.
Councilwoman Orr?
Yes, thank you. Gene, I certainly appreciate your position on this because, as we've got to look forward to the general fund and what we can do to stabilize that. I really have faith that we're going to get that done this year. And I will tell you, I've spent quite a bit of time at the fairgrounds and at the rodeo, and the wires hanging in the middle of the buildings when you're in those barns. I mean, it is definitely a safety hazard. And so I think we're smart to go ahead and move. And I would like to see us turn the rodeo grounds into more of a producing of funds for us too, for our general fund. So I think all of this could work together, and then maybe we could start to get maybe more income from the rodeo grounds down the road.
Yes, I believe in the new agreement with Prescott Frontier Days where you have 5 years to look at like master planning and things like that. And I would need to mention this also. I would be horribly remiss this evening if I did not mention that APS is a big partner in this project, and they are doing some of the work on the arena lighting, which is why this bid came in at $266,000. So sorry about that, APS.
Yeah. No, I've talked to Darla DeVille about this, so I know she's happy to participate.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. While I appreciate Jean's comments and her concern with getting the PSPRS underway, here again, we got lawyers sitting here, and I had 2-3 comments about how dangerous environment we're inviting the public into, and now for us to ignore it, I don't feel comfortable. We got to go do something about it.
And I'll just for background information, we did have our risk pool people come out and they survey all our buildings and public properties, and they'd identify the electric out there as a problem that they would like us to.
Here again, thank you. Here again, in public, on tape, in front of God and country, we've acknowledged we got a problem. We got to go fix it.
Councilman Shiska.
Thanks, Mayor. This is not $266,000 every year for many years, is it? It's just
No, it's a one-time capital outlay for a long time coming, and these are LED lighting, so, and they are angled such that they won't interfere with the neighborhood and things like that, and they're, like I said, the LED lighting will help reduce the electrical bill for running when the rodeo is in town for Prescott Frontier Days, etc. But it's one time. We shouldn't have to do anything with that arena lighting for, nobody can tell me how old the arena lighting is now, but I'm going to guess at least 50 years old, so this is probably a 30 to 50 year project.
I'll tell you what, at the performance I went to, not a single cowboy roped a heel when they were team roping, and part of it is the lighting. And so if we want a quality event that's going to give the city a return on investment, which it does, we need to do this.
Councilwoman Wilcox.
Well, I don't disagree with anything you've said about public safety. My point is we need to defer this until we have a revenue source in place. That means a sales tax, we need voter approval. I want to know that we get the voters' approval in May and then move forward with these projects out of the general fund.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a comment. First of all, going out there and taking a look at the condition of the electrical wiring and the transformers out there right over the stands. You know, it's wonder why during an electrical storm we haven't had a problem up to now and possibly got people injured, whether they were spectators or participants. So I think this is definitely a safety issue that we don't want to delay and set off. So I think you know, we need to move forward on this. The other thing, and like you said, EPS, you know, I've talked to Steve Quinn, and he indicates that their effort for this is going to be right around $400,000. You know, would they give that to us next year? They might, but at the same time, you know, I think a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, and they're already poised to do this work now. So as far as I'm concerned, this is something that needs to move forward now. Any public comment? Do you have a motion?
Mayor, I move to award city contract number 2017-202.
Second.
Yeah, motion, second vote, please.
Passes 6-1. Councilwoman Wilcox dissenting.
Okay, City Manager, since we didn't have an opportunity to talk about this at the study session, I'd like to move that item into next week. Do you see a problem with that?
Absolutely not. Should be no problem at all.
Pizza.
Okay.
Do you want to place it on a regular agenda, or do you want to study it again?
Do you want to do study and then regular follow?
Study and regular.
We do need a motion to continue the consideration, so that move to continue consideration of the item to the voting meeting of December 20th, 2016.
Okay.
So moved.
Can somebody give me a motion there?
Mayor, I move to do what Dana said.
And I second to do what Dana said.
All those in favor?
Okay. I have a motion, second vote, please. I hope you understood what it was.
Passes unanimously.
Okay. Well, in the interest of time, I'm not going to do a Founding Fathers quote tonight.
Wait, there's one
This
more
has been
item.
a long day. Thank you for coming.
There's one more
And-
item.
No, there is.
Item L.
Did I miss one?
It never ends.
Oh, the legislative
Mr. Mayor, it's just
Oh, okay, I'm-
going over the legislative agenda.
Approval of the City of
You made
Prescott's
up for that.
2017 legislative
Bye.
agenda.
Tyler's young and spry. I'm glad he's last.
I'm still awake. I'm still here. This is good. This will be very brief. What I'm presenting to you. Do we need to read it in, Dana, or?
I just did.
Oh, you did? Okay. The 2017 legislative agenda. This is the exact same document that Barry Aarons brought to you during a study session last month. Just as a reminder, this is a organic document that can be changed as things change during the session, as council's priorities change and the focus changes. We can take away or add to this. We're going to be giving this to our District 1 legislators so they can be on the same page with us going forward. And as always, we'll be giving you frequent updates as the session starts, which I believe is January 9th. So that's coming up pretty quick. So unless there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but that's about it.
Mayor, I just have a quick,
Go ahead.
if I could request. Last year, during the updates, they're great. Don't get me wrong. I like the updates, but I would like staff not to insinuate what they think we're thinking, what is best, or what we won't want. Because there was a couple that on that list that staff determined that we didn't want, which I was adamantly against. So I'd like kind of a chance to go through that.
Absolutely.
There's no problem at all.
Any other questions, comments from the council?
You need a motion.
Any from the public? Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve City of Prescott's 2017 legislative agenda.
Second.
Yeah, motion, second vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you for coming. This meeting's adjourned.